І так, ще раз всім добрий ранок.
Okay, good morning everyone again. We can start our event. My name is Olena Kolesnikova. Today I will be with you almost the entire event. I will be moderating and I will be reporting for you. So this is a slightly unusual format, but we are starting a very important event. Why is the subject so relevant? It's because almost everyone is speaking today about people, about human capital, about human resources. People are speaking about this on and on, but unfortunately these issues aren't getting resolved. So I think that we have to keep talking and talking until we find some solutions. So I'm very thankful to our organizers who chose this specific subject, because actually without people things don't work and there won't be business, there won't be the country. We are proving this year after year. So I am happy to invite Alexander Kubrakov, the head of the supervisory board of the We Build Ukraine Foundation, without whom we wouldn't be here today. So Alexander, over to you. And I think you will also say that people matter a lot, right? Yes. Hello. Thank you, Olena. We didn't just choose the subject for no reason. We are going back to the strategy that we worked on back when I was with the government. We understood that an economic strategy is necessary because the situation had changed a lot. Ukraine lost quite a few territories, people, production capacities. At the same time, during the war, Ukraine received an opportunity to export to new markets. Ukraine received some businesses that used to work in Russia, but decided to work in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. And so at some point, we figured that we have some completely greenfield industries. If we look at minerals and things like that, there is the Titan industry, which was developed during the USSR, full cycle production. And coming back to people, the strategy that we talked about is 8 key sectors and 4 business enablers. And business enablers are actually one of the key factors that a lot of businesses depend on, and that's the human factor as well. Of course, we see surveys, like yesterday there was a survey that was not very beneficial in Financial Times. They show how many people are in European countries, how many Ukrainian citizens, and how many of them are planning to come back. And they are showing that it's fewer than 50%. So people are saying that they aren't planning to come back. I'm looking at this from a somewhat different perspective, because I can provide 2 interesting examples we went through. I used to be the head of the IT Ukraine Association. And I remember how in 2014, when the war in the east of Ukraine started, when the Crimea was annexed, a lot of Ukrainian companies were moving their employees, their engineers to Kyiv office, Lviv office, Dnipro office. Some people would say, I want to go immediately to Warsaw or some other place abroad, and they would relocate. And we did a survey, and it was surprising to find that the absolute majority of these people came back, like 90% came back within 2, 3, 4 years, and they went back to Ukraine. Why? Because the salaries within that company were about the same, and the cost of living was different. Like the real estate would be cheaper here, taxes would be lower here. And another example that we saw before the full-scale war, we saw the example of the metalworking industry, for instance, when the government insisted on working with businesses asking to increase the minimum salary in the industry. We saw how the monthly paycheck went from 9,000 to 25, 27,000, or even 40, 50,000 in reality. In the metalworking industry, the target minimal income should be at least 1,000 euros. And we saw how hundreds of thousands of our citizens who went on seasonal work abroad or just went there to work, otherwise they would come back. We saw the statistics very clearly. So two key factors, in my opinion, which we will discuss today, are safety and the level of paycheck. If at least these two conditions are maintained, we can talk about this. So I wish everyone an interesting discussion. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. But I will surprise you when I present this study. We thought so as well, but then we did the research and we were surprised. And I am happy that we have trade unions with us today. By the way, they can disagree with the statement, but I have to share this information because this is the research. Now I would like to give the floor to Laszlo Juhász.
Laszlo в нас керуючий директор.
Laszlo is the managing director of BCG in Eastern Central Europe, and Laszlo is also here to speak with us with a few welcome words.
Yes, I will try to share my screen to show the presentation. Can you allow that, please? Yes. So, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me and you can see me well. My name is Laszlo Juhász. I am leading Boston Consulting Group in Central and Eastern Europe, and very happy to be here with you today, and wish you all a great conference on this super important topic. And like in case of previous similar conferences, let me share a few thoughts as an intro, as an inspiration for discussions later on. And maybe at the beginning, let me share a few words on the work we were doing together with Mr. Kubrakov, the ministry and his team, and the NGO Unite last year. And then I will come to the people topics, which has been identified as one of the key enablers of the economic vision of Ukraine. So what we have done basically as part of this major work, we were trying to establish a post-war economic vision for Ukraine with a target date of 2040. And we were basically focusing on creating a baseline of the starting situation, set the vision, identifying the key sectors and the future-proof economic spheres of the Ukrainian economy, and also make sure that the regions are actually captured in this analysis to the extent possible, because obviously Ukraine is a large country, and then the economic vision should also be de-averaged for the various regions of the country. And I think very, very shortly, what we thought it's unique in this approach, which we deployed together with Mr. Kubrakov and the team, was that we were focusing on the entire economy, all major sectors. We had a very strong regional aspect, as mentioned. We wanted to be transformational, so not just gradually building on what we already have in the country, but also set transformational initiatives for the major sectors of the country. Definitely involved the insights and expertise of various subject matter experts from Ukraine, but also internationally. Try to apply a strategic lens and absolutely business focus, business lens, economic lens, and also to the extent possible, which is not always easy in case of a country in war, but we try to base everything on a very solid quantitative basis with respect to as-is analysis and also for the future forecasts and vision setting. And maybe just last generic page on this approach, we were, as part of the exercise, also trying to capture those sectors which could be the most future-proof for the economy in Ukraine, basically based on two lenses. First of all, what is the attractiveness, the global international attractiveness of the given sector, and what is Ukraine's right to win in case of those sectors, as you can see on the page. And then on the bottom of the page, we also identified various enablers which are very important to actually make this vision really happen in real life. And then, as you can see, one of them was actually the people and workforce situation in the country. Let me zoom on now on this dimension in these few minutes, which I wanted to share with you today. So obviously there are some quantitative and then qualitative factors of the workforce and the population of the country. And obviously Ukraine is a very special situation. If we start more from the quantitative angle, I think we can all see that the population of Ukraine started to decrease already before the war started, actually in line with many European nations. And then obviously the war added a very special additional situation which accelerated this tendency because of the wave of migration from the country. And because of that, I think we have to be prepared that the baseline of the population and the workforce in Ukraine will be on a negative tendency and probably will not reach the level of 2021 within this planning horizon. And that is obviously also having a clear implication on the workforce, which you can see on the right-hand side. So basically, we were counting that we have to live with a decrease of roughly 20% by 2040 in the available workforce in the country. Now, obviously, that's a bit more deeper than that. And if we go one level deeper and we look at the age distribution of the society in Ukraine, I think beyond what I said already about the quantity, it's also super important to note that the effect of the war actually hit the most those age groups, age generations, which are like the younger ones, and which would be otherwise a very important basis of the demographic growth of the country in the later stage. And this gives a specialty to the Ukrainian demographic tendency beyond the general negative tendency which we also observe in case of other European nations. So we have to live with a baseline which is decreasing. We have to live with a baseline which is also having a negative impact on the available workforce in this planning horizon until 2040, unfortunately. Now, when we zoom in on the labor force, that's also, I think, an important factor in this equation, that basically, if we take the 2021 before war starting point, then basically we have roughly 41 million. Out of that, 28 million is in this working age population between 15 and 70. There is a relatively significant part, also international comparison, significant part in the, let's say, outside labor force population, which the breakdown you can see on the right-hand side, the typical like pensioners, students, discouraged, and all the other social groups. And then we have a labor force of 17 million, out of that formally employed roughly 13 million, and then we have a relatively higher, even compared to other Central Eastern European countries, relatively higher share of informally employed or grey economy labor force, and then we have a unemployment, also officially unemployment category. So this is the composition of the labor force, which is a baseline when we calculate the supply of workforce for the next, let's say, decades. Now, if we zoom on this informal employment and grey economy, I think that is also showing an interesting and special structure in Ukraine, which is concentrating mostly on agriculture, on construction, and on some parts of the wholesale retail sectors. And I think that will be, especially in line with the ambition, the EU accession, that will be a very important topic for the future governments of Ukraine to actually create a strategy which is able to shift a significant part of this informally employed population into formal employment, and with that create additional reserve, additional resource of future economic growth of the country. Now, the other thing is that beyond the general demographic trends and beyond the impact of the war and the let's say informally employed grey economy categories, the other specialty is that obviously Ukraine is ambitioning the EU accession, and if we take the example of the other CE countries, CE markets which joined the EU before, then we have observed in case of all countries with different weights, as you can see on the left-hand side here, but we have observed like significant additional migration from these countries to Western Europe, Southern Europe, Northern Europe often, which I think will be a factor also in case of Ukraine. Obviously, it's very difficult to really estimate at the moment, like, how much and in which time of the accession process this will pop up, but this is an additional factor which I think we can also calculate with when we think about the potential expected workforce supply in the country. So I think because of these quantitative categories, I think it's very important that the Ukrainian leadership does have a view and a strategy on how to secure the workforce quantity and quality of the workforce for the economic development, for the reconstruction, for the economic vision which the country would like to achieve. And we actually thought about three pillars of that. One is the size of the workforce. Basically, it should be sufficient in terms of volume and available workforce. The other one is the quality, the skill set, the structure of this available workforce. And the third one is obviously the compensation, but I would even say not just the compensation, but this interplay between compensation, so wages, and living standards, and at the same time productivity. Because I think what we observe in the other Central Eastern European markets is that many of them actually benefited from a faster growth of productivity than labor cost increase for many years. But this major driver of economic growth actually reached its limits by now in case of these other CE markets. And I think Ukraine can learn from these other countries and can create a conscious strategy how to make sure that the productivity increase is not lagging behind the expected increase in labor compensation, because that is a very important equation for the future economic competitiveness of the country. Now, just a few illustrations, because again, because of time, this presentation will obviously not go into very details, but just on the size, I think we already mentioned that we are calculating with a relatively stagnating / declining overall workforce. In terms of productivity increase, I think it's very important to mention that here we see a big gap in case of Ukraine. I mean, that gap is different by sectors. It's interesting to see, for example, that in case of the IT and technology, there is not much gap between, let's say, Poland and Ukraine. In case of other sectors, this gap is significantly bigger, which obviously is a negative starting point. On the other hand, also creates a really opportunity for Ukraine to boost the productivity, and with that actually create a major driver of economic growth, at least in the first decades of this coming economic growth phase. I think the other important element is when we talk about the availability and quality of workforce is what kind of reserves do we see at the economy? And one reserve, obviously, as mentioned already, is the informal employment, so the grey economy. The other reserve is probably with a smaller impact, but still is the unemployment levels, which are, I think, historically it was also relatively high in Europe and the newly joined EU countries. But I think now Ukraine has a higher unemployment ratio than most of these peer markets. And therefore, we believe that actually reducing this unemployment level and activating part of the unemployed population is also a lever which the Ukrainian leadership should count with when planning the next decades in terms of economic development. And then there is an important piece, which is the skill set. And I think here we see that there is a good starting base of the Ukrainian available workforce and population, because the level of education is absolutely comparable to EU average and Western Europe and Germany. So I think this is something which definitely can be built on and should be a factor which can play a positive role in the expected and ambitioned economic growth of Ukraine for the future. Now, that is also obviously more the average than a generic picture. So if we look at those sectors where we believe that Ukraine has a stronger role to play going forward in this new economic vision, I think you can see that there are very different sectors in that category, different in the sense of how much generic level of education these sectors actually require from the workforce. I mean, this includes sectors like agriculture, forestry, fishing, which is a completely different demand in terms of workforce skills and education, like, for example, to, I don't know, IT sectors, technology sectors, even general business sectors, education especially. So I think we have to be very de-averaged when we plan the workforce availability and supply in the country, also with the respect of quality and level of education going forward. Just to take one example of construction, I think this is not a static view. So we have to be able to define certain, matrices of workforce demand and supply, and then also make it in a dynamic way, calculating with those demand elements which are more typical for the reconstruction phase, and then also those ones which are more midterm and more kind of popping up in case of more developed and more like ongoing future economic production of the country. And then finally on the compensation and productivity. So I think it's very clear that in terms of a starting baseline, the compensation level, the average wage level, is significantly lower in Ukraine on average than not just Western Europe, but also compared to the other Central European peers. So I think the good news in this is that kind of extensive development which did happen in other markets of Central Eastern Europe, because simply a potential increase in productivity and potential increase of compensation, that's absolutely possible in case of Ukraine also when we look forward. Now, it's very important, I mentioned already, to carefully watch out to the dynamics between labor productivity and labor cost. And I think you can see that in both angles there is a catch-up possible in case of Ukraine, obviously, and that was already kind of started to happen before 2020. The gaps did remain, but I think this is, in my opinion, in my personal view, this is one of the most important things which Ukraine should learn from the example of the peers in Central Eastern Europe, and should have a conscious plan on how it wants to balance the future productivity growth and wage cost increase in the country. And then finally, it is obvious not just a question of economic competitiveness and interplay between productivity and labor cost increase. I think it's also a very important factor of domestic demand for the economy. And in that, obviously, the purchasing power of the Ukrainian population will play a very important role. And as you can see, basically, in the past, we were observing to some extent in a certain period higher growth in the personal disposable income of Ukraine compared to peers. But in the last 10 years, actually, that was roughly growing the same level like the major peers in Central and Eastern Europe. So that is the third element of the equation. So basically the labor cost as a factor of economic competitiveness, the productivity increase, which is a very important driver of economic growth going forward, and then the impact on the demand and the purchasing power of the local society in Ukraine. This is a triangle which I think any economic vision, any economic policy should balance and optimize going forward for Ukraine. I mean, let me stop here and finalize, maybe wrap up some of the messages. So basically, what we believe is that, unfortunately, in terms of the quantitative baseline, we have to calculate stagnating/declining workforce in the Ukraine in the foreseeable future because of these factors I already mentioned. I don't want to repeat them. I think it's very important to have a clear strategy on the quality of the workforce in the sense of what kind of education levels is needed for the future. Also building on the fact that the starting point in this respect is actually favorable for the country. And then finally, I think it's super important to optimize this interplay and equation again between productivity growth, between labor cost increase, and also the economic demand of the country. So this will be a very important enabler of the envisioned economic vision and growth of the economy. And I think, as said here, the positive thing is that there are many learnings from the other Central and Eastern European countries, which can be a good basis for Ukraine to actually do it smarter in its own economy in this upcoming period until 2040. So with that, I would wrap up here and thank you for your attention. And most importantly, I would like to wish you a very productive and fruitful conversation and cooperation in this conference today. And I hope that some of these thoughts and data gave a bit of an input and inspiration for the discussions today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laszlo. So your very interesting presentation for us. Ми далі будемо продовжувати.
We continue, and I am honored to give the floor to myself because I will make a presentation for you as well. And I like it because actually with all the consulting agencies, we are fighting for the approaches, methodology, and issues that we are researching. But here it intersects a lot, and I didn't even participate in that, so I love it. Where did the story start? During the 10 years, we are fighting with the Ministry of Economy and like Center of Labor and Ministry of Education, who we should prepare and how many people. And they say like, it's impossible to calculate. Why? Because it's so complicated. People, they are changing, they are leaving, etc., etc. We've been saying that for such a long time that at a certain stage, everybody started investigating the labor market. And each research that we opened, always like those who are selling and those who are working in logistics. We are looking at the economy, it's totally different. So what's the problem? We started researching methodology of research. How do they do it? It turned out that the researches were made very simply. Just calculate the vacancies. But when you come to HRs, they say like, okay, the vacant jobs, it's good. But we have such indicators, and such indicators, if you take them into account, it's totally different picture. So we realized that we need to change the methodology. 2 years ago, we came to the Employment Center and we said, let us change the methodology and try to calculate it differently and see who's needed, what is needed on the labor market. And actually, the Employment Center, they supported us, our partners supported us in this research. And last year, we made the first research for 33,000 of companies who, together with the Employment Center, actively, well, it was not the kind of desk research, it was active research via communication. They were not just filling in the questionnaires like the formal procedure. After that, 35,000 of questionnaires we had. So part of them we excluded when we were considering the questionnaire. So if there is a questionnaire which is filled in partially, so it is formal. We were not interested in that. But 33,000 of questionnaires, we processed them. We looked at our mistakes. We worked on our mistakes. Thank you very much to Helvitas, our partners who are present here today. They were supporting us. And that The next year, we came there and we are saying to Helvetas, please support us one more time. We will do this research even better, and we will add to that. And we will make one more with the unemployed people, because Daria Marchak came, first deputy of Ministry of Social Policy, came to our presentation. She says, like, it's perfect about like what business needs, etc. Did you calculate the potential? Do we balance or we don't? Then it will be the labor market, right? And labor market, it's not from one side, but it's like from both sides. Okay, so thank you to our partners again. We just added to our research, and the thing that I present today, it's the research that was made thanks to our partners. You can see Helvetas and State Employment Service Ministry, of the Czech Republic and others who are included even us. But the most important thing that we've done, we did not just research 55,000 companies, but these companies, they have 4.2 million of workers. I think it's a very representative sample. Methodology. It was not what the people wanted, but it was the requirement on the level of the district. So it's not the average on the region, but we know that from one side of the region, the person is not going to the other part of the region. We are not even talking about like different parts of the country. So we went to the level of district in order to understand whether on the level of district there are these interests. So we were using the mandatory sample to have small, medium, and big enterprises, and each sector that is presented in the region which exists in order to have the representative research. We did not take into account only the militaries and state servants because of understandable reasons. So what we've got, the data. The data surprised us greatly because it was the first time when we had such a large-scale research, and we asked, because when we were conducting the survey among unemployed, well, indeed, we have too many unemployed people, and when we are asking businesses, they say people are lacking. When we come to the employment center, they say like from 80 to 100,000 unemployed people. That's huge potential for business, where to take the staff, but somehow it doesn't work. It doesn't work out. So our task was to understand why. Where is the problem? We have a lot of unemployed people. We have a lot of jobs that need people. So in theory, there was a question of salary. Just to do the measurement. It's okay. Everybody realized, like, yeah, what kind of salary it is, can we do it or not? At the moment, we have 60,000 of unemployed, mostly those were women in most cases, so 83% those were women. However, still, they are unemployed, and we are fighting against gender stereotypes. We don't have them anymore, so we think it's representative. At the moment, there were only like, so 85%, right, we covered. 85% of unemployed. And that was done actively in cooperation with each district and regional department of employment center. I am so grateful to them, because without them it wouldn't have been possible. So we looked at the sectors also, and almost the same. The sectors coincide with what is done with We Built Ukraine. And it's logical if you know at least something about economy. So we had such numbers. Of course, we see shortening somewhere. In some sectors, we see, in spite of all the challenges of war, companies are employing people and there is growth. We looked at the regions and we realized that, of course, if we are talking about Donetsk and Luhansk, that is the biggest shortage. If you are talking about Transcarpathia and Lviv, of course, we see growth because relocation of companies, relocation of people. So we all knew about these indicators, but so to say in scientific approach, we confirm that we have the data. Next, what we've been talking about. Employment, which is planned. We had to understand whether companies are planning, because each company has such indicators, they are working with that. So first of all, we considered who is most demanded among the employees, and again, the planned hiring. So 32% of employers, they have plans regarding hiring people, approximately 112,000 employees. Again, there is fields where this is planned, and you can see who has to be, like the biggest data. It's about the professions that are needed. Drivers, it's clear why, because now even with the notion that we took, because today we were talking about, like today in the morning, like the mobilization, it was happening on the road. So the taxi drivers were taken there, so the drivers were excluded.
Then,
Next, women who are suing because we have light industry and we are suing even for militaries today, and we are suing like a lot, and it's big need. But earlier we did not have that because this gap that we have as of now, it is not covered because we were recalling like the level of system of education that was required, and I disagree with that thesis. I will explain why. Because not the level is important, but the coincidence of the specialty that exists. So for example, we have a lot of people trained in that field actually, but due to the fact that it's small qualification, they need a program for 1.5 years, they're making like designers, constructors out of those people. So when they are coming also with the qualification of the seamstress, she doesn't want to be the seamstress because she wants to have the different position. She wants the higher position, and the employer needs the person who will sew clothes. So that is why we have deficits. It's like, okay, we train formally quite a lot of people, but then they don't go for that position because they have higher qualification. So we have these needs. If we are talking about the most interesting things, the things that surprised me personally. So when we asked our unemployed people what is most important for them in employment, salary was on the first place. What do you want? Salary. Okay, first. And then we asked, what salary do you want to get so that you're ready to go and work? And to be honest, the data that we received just killed me. You can see the wages that we included into the conditions. So more than 20,000 hryvnias from our unemployed, like only 20%. 80% are ready and want to work for less than 20,000 hryvnias. Why was I killed by the data? Let us look at the real salary in sectors as of today, not even the average, the real one. If you even look at that, it is bigger than the salary that people are ready to work for. And that is complete misunderstanding for me. Why? So the employer is offering bigger salary, they want to have smaller salary, and we cannot employ them. Then it turned out that everything is so simple, full working day. So unemployed, only 56% are ready to work full day. And employers need 94% full-day workers. Yeah, now we understand that better. Next, remotely. I thought that, yeah, the numbers would be higher, but it's not that high. Again, surprise for me. Even though in our legislation we now make amendments to the labor code and also we give the possibility, but again, some misunderstandings are there. Next, of course, we were relying on the data of the pension fund because maybe we are mistaken. Maybe businesses are not offering such high salaries that our unemployed person wants to work for. And then we consider that and we realize that, yeah, the salaries that are offered are higher than demanded by unemployed, but still they are unemployed. I will repeat myself. Unclear for me personally. Most interesting thing, all the programs, reskilling, upskilling, training, we are talking about that a lot. We are investing money, etc. Very interesting data. So, only 23% of unemployed persons are ready for training. I will explain later why. Then we asked who they are, who they want to become. Okay, you can see all the kind of differences, discrepancies. And talking about the level of education, I am talking about the proper qualification that they received and that is needed on the labor market and where they have the gaps. How do we fix that? Is that retraining, if that is like in Ukraine, or it's increasing qualification, or maybe everything, they have everything, and it's not the issue. And here again, the results surprised me greatly, and I will explain why.
So when we ask, like, why, if you train, what results we will have? So only 23% are ready to change the profession. those who are absolutely not ready to change the profession, even if we understand that it's not a necessary profession, that's 30%. And then there are people who are considering this, that's 47%. They're considering this, but this shows that how our people feel about education, why it is necessary, why aren't they ready. Almost 17% say that it's too long, and this is why we are fighting sort of against the education system. That's why we launched the confirmation of informal education and skills confirmation through the unemployment exchange so that we can do it. Then 32% said it's difficult for me, and the biggest pain for me is this will not resolve my issue. For an unemployed person, they say that a new education will not resolve their issue. So a person doesn't see a connection between the opportunity to study and opportunity to find employment on the labor market. And this shows that professional orientation doesn't work at all. Like, people don't see these connections. Otherwise, it would make sense. I'm unemployed. I come here. The Ministry of Economy offers me vouchers, reskilling, one ministry, another ministry. So it makes sense that I am retraining, I get a qualification that is in demand, and I will find a better job. Turns out that 44% are not feeling that, and 13% said that there are some other factors. These were figures that were quite scary for me, by the way. Now, difficulties with recruitment. The deficit of personnel was cited by almost 40% of companies. We all understand why. 26% military draft is that's the 26%. That's how many companies find this a crucial factor, and we served a lot of companies. I will remind you. 15% of employers say that people have excessive expectations about the salary. In our representative sample, turned out a stereotype. Businesses think that they want more and actually want almost twice as little as businesses are already offering. And insufficient qualification, namely insufficient in terms of the level, that's only 14%. And that's something that is very surprising to me, because we keep saying how many people will retrain, but maybe we don't need that. These are real numbers. Now, motivation of the unemployed. Those who are ready to work are 79%. That's those who already approached the unemployment exchange. So 21% are not ready to work, even though they came to the unemployment center. And that's almost 70,000 respondents. That's a lot of numbers. When we ask them about motivation, they start agreeing to change the profession. We did these sort of psychological manipulations because people tend to answer in the stereotypical way. They're saying, what do you need? I need money. So you need to approach it creatively. 18% are ready to relocate. And you know what surprised me? What group do you think is the most mobile out of everyone? Young people. No, people with disabilities. Are you scared? Are you scared? I'm scared myself, because this is completely unexpected. All the other categories are less mobile. So out of those who are ready to move, if we look in terms of percentage, the highest percentage of those who are ready to move are people with disabilities. And interestingly, IDPs are not quite as mobile. As for the expectations of the unemployed, and here again, high salary, but we are going back to the previous slide where they were the ones who indicated their salary expectations. Then stability and safety is also another expectation. Flexible hours, again, 40% of people say this. We all understand why. If we all don't sleep at night, nobody wants to work from 9 to 6 if you're lucky. That's going back to the productivity of work. Remember, there was a slide about this, and I may disagree a little bit, and I would look at the methodology there. Social package, this is also about stereotypes. You know why? Because when we ask companies, they mostly do offer this, but people don't know about this, but they still make it a priority, though when they are offered higher salary and social package, they don't want to work. So that's the thing. And opportunities for professional development, 28%. So when they are planning to go work, they don't really consider the opportunities for professional development. Only 28% do. So these are the responses of our unemployed respondents. And here you can see socially vulnerable categories and looked what this looks like. If we speak about people with disabilities, currently 67% are ready to be, 7% of employers are ready to recruit people with disabilities, 79% are ready to recruit IDPs, 72% ready to employ veterans, and we mentioned people of the retirement age. We have this category of people. We don't have Dreamer Chuck. She told me that I shouldn't say old people, I should say slightly older people. So we as businesses all come back to these people as businesses because they are not subject to military draft and they are highly qualified very often. But when we ask them if they will be employed, they said no, because I'm retired. But actually this is a stereotype. Yes, before the war we did have this stereotype. We tried to keep them sometimes as trainers, as mentors, but we did not employ them like full-time. But today the situation for the business changed significantly, and we all understand this. So if we look at these groups, if we break this down by categories, they have very different approaches. So what does the slide tell us? You cannot work with everyone the same way. You need to understand the specifics of each category, understand what tools may be necessary to bring them back to their professional and career development. If we speak about cooperation with the State Employment Service, what is important for them? We often hear from businesses and from various government organizations that the employment center is not effective. And we need to understand what is prioritized by people and by businesses when they work or decide not to work with the employment center. Whether this is a formal approach, an informal approach. Maybe you know that a month ago the president signed an order where there is no more obligation to file a vacancy to the employment center. You can do this, but you don't have to do this. So we saw what is happening, and we understood that when we speak about large companies, rich companies, as they say, they usually work with recruitment agencies and so on because they have money. When we speak about small and medium businesses, they usually look at the State Employment Service because this is free. And then I saw that businesses often approach employment centers to get explanations about labor legislation, seminars and trainings. Businesses go to the employment center for education, and 11% go for compensation programs. I had a fight with one ministry recently, and they said, we will compensate people for this. And I said, where do you get the money? And they said, but you will actually take this money from us to give it to us. So that's only 11% of employers who are interested in compensation programs. Now, what do the unemployed want? 75% are looking for a job, 39% are looking for professional training, 31% are looking for seminars and trainings. But the first number is scary. Only 75% indicated they are interested in looking for a job. So 25% essentially recognize that they do go there to get welfare, which is a major issue, I think. So here is what we are going to work with. Here's what we are doing. I mean, we are doing the research and the presentation, not just to show it to somebody and then to be done with it. Actually, this is a presentation that is done in order to show the results. But in order to work with this research, you can see a dashboard in the local employment center. You can see the figures. You can go to the dashboard, you can select the data, and you can easily make a management decision at your regional level. This is not just a research, this is a practical tool that we are going to use in the system of professional technical education to understand how many people we need to train and what kind. And we want to carry out this research every year to track the dynamics, because all these things are highly predictable. They are built on long-term statistical data, so they often distort the real situation. We want to have this research continued with the same methodology so that the results could be comparable year on year, so that we could compare the situation, so that we could understand how the human capital changes and so on. So we believe that this will be a completely practical tool that we are going to work with the educational system and with our partners. Again, I am thankful to World Bank and Helvetas for supporting us, and we really change a lot now to make sure that women forget about stereotypes, men forget about stereotypes against women, about men's and women's jobs. We had a conference recently where we talked about this with World Bank, and when I said that we have cases when women already learned men's jobs, they joined the team, but they keep quitting, and we can't understand why. Men just start hazing them in the workplace, essentially. Women just leave to find a better situation for themselves, and that makes sense. So we need not to only work with stereotypes, so women who should understand that there are no more women's or men's jobs, but also with men in companies who should perceive this normally, because they find it very difficult to so the study by BCG was presented in a quite general way. We made it very practical. So if you are interested in information for your management companies, for your managerial decisions, you can go to the dashboard. It's regularly updated. And then we are planning to look at this dynamic. Now we have just 2 items. Next year we'll have 3, and then we will be able to track that. This is all during the war. So we'll have the real dynamic that is not distorted, and that will show our situation on the labor market. I don't think I was great with timing, but thank you for letting me speak. And now I have the honor to invite a new panel to us today. I don't see Mikhailo Vinitsky. Mikhailo, why are you hiding? Come here, please. Deodas is Mikhailo Vinitsky, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, and he knows better than anyone how many discussions we have about who needs to be trained. Mikhailo, right? But we still love each other, but we have big fights, big ones. So that's why I'm not part of this panel. They didn't let me. Then I want to invite Tetem Pavlichenko, first vice rector of the Dnipro Polytechnic National Technical University. By the way, they know I always praise them, but if I need something, I call them. They never turn businesses down. See, they are agreeing. When I say businesses need this, they go like, yes, absolutely, we'll do everything you want. Right? And then Olena Homenko, Director General of the Ukrainian Agro Business Club Association. Where are you going? Oh, you're moving a different way. That's fine, we are waiting for you. Igor Fomenko, head of the All Ukraine Association of Employer Organizations in the aerospace, rocket building, shipbuilding, and other scientific sectors in the defense industry. And he is a part of the Federation of Employers of Ukraine. I also represent the Federation of Employers of Ukraine, so we are colleagues. And when Alexander was speaking about metallurgy, he was looking at me because I also am part of the Federation of Metal Workers. Which, where many has. Also, Dmytro Shenkovsky, who will be with us online. He is the Vice Rector for External Relations and Public Service of the UCU. And Yuri Antoniuk, I thought he would be here because I have things to talk to him about. He is the Vice President of EPAM Central and Eastern Europe. He is also online with us. So, dear colleagues, I really like provocations to make things interesting. So, Mihailo, I will start with you. And I know how much you like responding to comments, but I want to hear your thoughts about what you think. BCG said it's important what the level of training is like, and I think it's more important to choose the qualification profession correctly. And what is the higher education for, actually? Okay, let me put it this way. Olena does like provocations very much, and putting me in a situation, especially when I speak first and everyone else will be able to respond. We actually have a wonderful audience here because we have representatives of employers from highly technical industries. We have agrarians, we have polytechnic, we have a completely different philosophy of the Ukrainian Catholic University, and we have a representative of the IT business. So who and what is needed for higher education? It is for everyone, but has to be different. And it's very important because there is a place for Ukrainian Catholic University, Kyiv Mohyla Academy, Ostrog Academy, that type of universities that train the broad profile of specialists. That's a well-learned person, the person who has broad horizon. Is this person prepared for their first workplace? Probably not. And that's also fine, because such people later learn throughout their life, and they often change their qualifications several times during their life, and that's normal. That's liberal arts training or just worldview training, and that's also very important. And there is a different type that is generally called the applied sciences university type, as we have here impersonated by Dnipro Polytechnic, but there are also other technical universities that really train specialists who, through dual education, through practical training, can immediately become economically active, who can immediately become helpful for the employees. Who is the higher education for? For every one of them. And there is also another important aspect that is for future scholars. And this is a place where academic activity is reproduced, where we see the formation of a future scientific and innovation potential of the country. So as for your question, who higher education is for, it should provide all three of these items. These are the three functions of higher education. They are all very important. As for whether every educational establishment can equally provide all three of them, obviously not. I think everyone is tracking a situation that now the biggest political scandals are around various unions of universities, and our network of education should be something that will ensure all three functions. Not every university can provide all three. We will have more liberal arts, more applied or scientific universities. So that's why we need this network. That's my easy answer to your provocation, Elena.
Thank you very much. Now I'm giving the floor not to myself, but I will ask Igor Fomenko to speak, because like from education to business, from business to education, yeah, we will do it this way so that it is more interesting. I think he will respond. Yeah, did you give the right response or not? And in general, he will say his worldview regarding what is happening here and what does the business want, because the specifics of Mr. Igor is very important as of today for our country. Hello, dear colleagues. Well, I wouldn't like to respond to what Mr. Mikhailo said, but I would like to talk about the defense industry. I would like to talk about what's happening there. I agree with the things mentioned by Mr. Mikhailo, because, yeah, it is provocative from one side, but from other side, it's a very deep topic, you know, and we can just spend a few days just talking about that here. So coming back to the defense industry and the situation with staff there and prospects, unfortunately, Ukraine and all of us, we are living in a very unique situation where the whole territory of our country, and we all, as a matter of fact, we are on the polygon, you know, where we are trying both old and used samples of weapons, military weapons that were never used in the active phase of war, and now we are the participants of all those processes, direct participants. All of that is promoting the development of innovations, development of defense complex, because if we won't have the defense industry, we won't have Ukraine. So in spite of the fact that now we are ensuring only 40% of the needs, but the potential and the situation in which the defense industry is developing. So, for example, if before the active phase of war we had approximately 300 companies of state and private ownership, now we have more than 1,000 that are working in this field. If we used to have approximately 80,000 people who were working on the enterprises, so now it's more than 300,000, and the amount of production was like $1.5 million. Now it is approximately $35 billion, yeah, that are in the turnover of these enterprises. It means that people from different sectors, they went to the defense sector. And the main value, in addition to like technologies, finances, production capacities, without people, without human capital, all of that has no sense. Even the robotic systems, they won't work without humans. So the main value is person. And from the state point of view, like the national point of view, we should become the human-centered country. Unfortunately, as of now, it is not quite like that. But in the prospects, we have to be the human-centered state. If we are talking about the people who are working in the defense sector, yeah, and what HR services are facing when they are working on their responsibilities, when they are performing state contracts, etc. So that is the mobilization processes and also relocation of enterprises, and also the fact that a few million of people left abroad, and also people are aging in our country, and there is like relocation. So a lot of things. And there are certain types of mental pressure also, maybe like perception of people who are working in defense industry. First of all, that they are targets. As a matter of fact, because almost every day we can see that our enemy is systemically destroying our possibilities, production capacities, and our kind of defense industry. So people there are always facing the risk. So we know that our enemy wants to destroy the key persons in the field of defense industry. For example, like developers, technologists, constructors, those who are ensuring the components of our defense. And that is a big psychological pressure when, well, so to say, like yesterday there was a hit and you had your colleagues, and in the morning, like you had to go and work. You know, that's a separate story and very important story that has to be taken into account when you're working, when you're engaging people in the field of defense industry, or manufacturing something for the defense. Then it is also responsibility, because it depends on how fast, in which numbers you supply the equipment, the weapons to the front line. Because everything depends on that. The sovereignty of our country, lives and health of our warriors. Therefore, this responsibility is present at all the enterprises and people who are working in defense industry, right? So in addition to pressure, fines, etc., this responsibility is present. So I'm communicating with many employees and managers. They feel responsibility to the state, no matter how it sounds. So the third pressure, I would say, the innovative pressure, because we can see that there are sometimes like weapons, for example, drones, like robotic systems, etc. Every 4 to 6 months, it's like the spiral. They are changing their technical characteristics, and correspondingly, the innovations, requirements to people who are developing, like constructors, technologists, etc., that is the pressure that they can feel, in order to be a bit ahead of our enemy. It's changing rapidly. Every 4 to 6 months. As a matter of fact, the tactical requirements and the requirements of the front line are changing to the weapons that's used. So this is requirement to competency and qualification of the employees, starting from technologists and those who are working on branding and those who are on production lines, etc., etc. The fact that our defense industry is now in more kind of discriminating condition in comparison with other fields. Unfortunately, that's true. So thanks God, yesterday People's Deputies registered the set of laws, Defense City and Federation of Employers of Ukraine and other associations. So we are lobbying that for some time, and most of the proposals were included to laws, and as soon as Verkhovna Rada will adopt that and the President will sign that, that will create a very interesting investment, attractive environment to attract investments, because as a matter of fact, right now, even talking to the foreign partners, we have nothing to offer. We have nothing to offer so that they can invest. So from the point of view of those people who are there, and they are like the enterprises of that field, they are in the market, they are competing even among themselves, because indeed there is deficit of motivated, responsible, highly qualified staff. So the defense industry that used to be 5 years ago and now, those are totally different defense industries, and there are different requirements to products, to people who are performing these functions. From the point of view of prospects, and now defense industry or like complex is one of, well, the drivers of economic development, and it is creating our budget. And this word is used not as often, but after our victory, it will be the driver of economic development of our country. Taking into account the fact that now we have like 40%, the export potential of supplying products of our manufacturing and some Ukrainian inventions, this potential is huge, up to $30 billion. We can sell our products when the business will see such possibility from the point of view of export of their products. There will be investments, there will be some expansion. Unfortunately, as of today, the situation is a bit more complicated because our enterprises are relocated from the territory of Ukraine. People are creating the companies abroad in Baltic countries, Poland, Czech Republic, Great Britain, USA, etc., etc. So we are losing both technologies and people who are developing the technologies. For the state, it's a really bad story. From the point of view of kind of preparation of staff potential and human capital, there is no doubt the things that were already mentioned and the things that will be mentioned, everything related to short-term programs of training, dual education. Now, the higher need is of technical specialists, scientists, technical specialists. Youth, we can offer them just come and work, just work for 40 years and then you go and retire, at the plant. They are not interested. They should be interested. They should have this drive, So the modern technologies that are used for production, indeed, like 3D printers, and the need in some operators, etc., that's the future. That is what we've got. And now there is general tendency, and in some time we will have the war of robots, as it is shown in the movies, because now we are already close to that. And also the production capacities, the same story will happen, where mostly those will be robotic systems that will work. However, still, people with high level of knowledge, competency, and qualification, they will be needed. They are needed right now. And of course, uniting our efforts, of course, provocation is a very good story, but I think that here we have to kind of unite our efforts of our authorities, businesses, scientific organizations, so that we can survive this difficult moment as of now. And later on, we will have such a positive dynamics that we will have a line of people who would like to work. There are enterprises, again, if we are talking about the drivers, you know, what is giving this drive to people returning. The brand of employer is of huge importance. There are enterprises with there's a whole line of people who want to work there. Yeah, the level of wages, social guarantees. They are working with their people. They give the possibility of career growth, etc., etc. So everything regarding branding in general of the defense industry on the state and international level of certain enterprises, that is something that should stimulate, give the drive, and engage professional staff to these enterprises. I can speak for a long time. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I have to stop you because we are limited in time. So indeed, it's my mistake. I didn't mention we have up to 7-minute speech for our speakers so that we can discuss and question. So Mr. Mikhailo saved some time, so I didn't stop you. But you gave you mentioned one thing, so I will address Mr. Artem. First of all, I mentioned that, we are addressing you very often as businesses. You never say no to us as businesses. And secondly, about the robotic story and all the rest. I know that in Japan, they are building absolutely like robotic plants with no people there. Is that true? And how you, as the Polytechnical, Dnipro Polytechnic, how do you work in such complicated times? Thank you very much. I would like to comment. 7 minutes. Remember. Okay, I would like to comment on the things mentioned by other speakers and put an accent there. So higher education is about the future. Now we have to cover the urgent and general needs of all the complexes that are forming their issues. That is the defense possibility, that is agrarian sector, metal sector, IT, but we should understand that we need to form the following potential, because now we will focus all the attention, we will throw all our powers to ensure that we are doing that. It is so. But nevertheless, in order not to be surprised, not to see robots everywhere and not to know how to work with those, we have to be ready for that. We are preparing ourselves for that, and we do understand that it's the future. These are not just robots that will act on the manufacturing, that is even in everyday life and everywhere. And that is something that already exists, and we have to be prepared for that. Of course, in the conditions of martial law, it is a bit limited, right? Because we have different priorities as of now. However, nevertheless, there are examples of automatic manufacturings. These are complicated processes that require understanding on all the levels. So it's not just the specialist that will work on certain robot or a certain machine. There are examples when employers are saying we took 6 to 8 years person, to work, but somehow that equipment that costs millions, it breaks down. So of course we need to train people. Nobody says you cannot do that, but the process of adaptation, adjustment to production, and solving relevant urgent issues. As for the new modern technologies and innovative approaches, I would like to mention that all the logos of the companies that were there on the first slides, first presentations, those are our very powerful partners. And one of the focuses is that we are working not just with big companies. Why? Because each company has their own chance for success. And each big company once has started from the small thing. These are 2-3 employees who've been working, and some engineering that started with small laboratories, small offices, and now it's extremely powerful company that is ensuring the energy safety of our country. As a matter of fact, dozens of years of mutual work, cooperation on all the stages. As for the other specialists, they are also needed. We need to prepare the managers. Governance, state service, they have to understand how to implement all of that, because later on, they have to implement that on the level of the community. And you mentioned that correctly, that each community should react to their challenges. They understand what do they do with waste. They understand what do they do with land resources, how to plan a climatic strategy. how they are going to move, not for 2 years, but dozens of years. Now they have to predict that, and that is the future of each separate location, each separate region in our country. And of course, that is European integration. That is the world community that understands that each country has to integrate into the world space, and the faster they understand that, the easier it will be for us to do it. I am talking about the Polytechnic is ready to ensure almost like 70% of industrial potential that is to support on all the stages. There is a lot of challenges and a lot of requests regarding solving, as of today, as of now, certain issue. We are solving that, however, nevertheless, as it was mentioned, every 3-4 months, there are new problems, new challenges. We have to predict those. That is why we are working. Okay, tell me, please, is that hard to make quick decisions and make amendments inside of the university? You know, well, for example, Mr. Ihor comes to you and says, like, I need it for tomorrow. Can you do it? We can. Okay, it's a full stop. That's it. We can do it. That's good for me. Yeah, we are doing that for one employee, for dozens, for hundreds of employees. There's need to prepare, for example, like when the blackouts have started and people started buying generators and the energy system just went down. It was kind of broken. So what do we do with that? Everybody's ready. Everybody bought it, but nobody knows how that works. Yeah, that's how it is. And we resolved the problem. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yuri. Now my question is to you, technological switch, you know? Then we will come to practical things. I know you're smiling, you understand who I am talking about next, yeah. So, Mr. Yuri, tell us, please, what you heard and the things that are happening in the company, how hard it is right now for you, how difficult it is for you, what are your priorities? Thank you very much, Ms. Elena and colleagues. Unfortunately, I joined online. However, I think that, yeah, it's a very important event. Thank you very much to the team of Mr. Kubrakov for inviting me, and very interesting presentations. And also, Ms. Elena, your presentation, wow, it was super successful. So as a matter of fact, my response, it is based on the things that you have shown already. I fully support my colleagues. Yeah, I fully support my colleagues. I have some echo. Sorry. Yeah, but if you hear me well, I will just continue. It is very important for me to say that IT industry, even though it's different, significantly different from other industries, especially some service industries, that as a matter of fact, we experience same issues that Mr. Mikhailo mentioned and Mr. Ihor mentioned. As a matter of fact, here we have two things that I'd like to explain as of today. First thing is that Ukraine is in a situation of perfect storm, you know. Of course, nowadays, from the point of view of business and the state and the armed forces, we are all focused on our fighting. And business is like investing all the time and gave like 100 million for support of Ukrainian companies and Ukrainian society. But I like to say the following, that there is a different problem that comes up, and we've been speaking a lot about that, but Ms. Elena was asking about problems. And this next problem is artificial intelligence. Maybe I just underestimated that, but now we can see huge impact that takes place at the global level. And as a matter of fact, we need to find the right balance and how we're building our defense industry, as Mr. Ihor mentioned, and what changes are happening. So how does the industry engage? We have a huge number of volunteers and not volunteers, and just assigned people who are working with drones, and the successes are great. And comparing that with some global trends, in parallel, I think that both the state and business, and primarily I think from the side of the state that is education, that Mr. Mikhailo is representing today, have to think in advance. What do we do with people when more and more artificial intelligence will substitute or just add to the job that we do? It's not just about technological tackle in some digital directions, like in IT, for example, where we can see it right now, and where there are some planned shortages in big companies, and our clients, they have the expectation that AI will substitute work at first of kind of younger specialists and more qualified staff. So there are different scenarios, and we can talk about that for quite some time.
But this also comes into the physical sphere. It will come there through urbanization for one. So my personal conviction that I would like to convey to you today is that the business, the government, and education as well should invest in addition and help people prepare for these changes. Of course, I will also point out that the war still goes on, defense tech is developing, and this needs to work in conjunction. But in 3 to 5 years, that people are going to get a degree, those who just entered universities, the situation will change dramatically. That's why it is so crucial to think about this. I think we won't think how to give people an opportunity to reskill or upskill or something, or give them an opportunity to work with AI and other technologies. I am completely in agreement with those results that were found by BCG in terms of deficit of human resources. But if we look at the future influence of AI, the situation may change drastically, because maybe we will need not 300,000 programmers, we will need only 50,000 programmers. This is just very random numbers, but we do see the increased productivity of many industries with the use of AI. Yes, they are now speaking about 15%, 20%, 30% maybe, but an increase in productivity in any industry is a major thing. Some specialists are speaking about exponential growth, like twofold, threefold. These are, of course, very extreme numbers, but we have to be prepared for this. And I think this is the challenge that future Ukraine will face. And this is also why we have to rebuild a new Ukraine, not one that would work with like locksmith machines, but rather 3D printers and other modern devices, but something even more modern, something that will come later, which is why I think that education should really adapt. Of course, the war that is still ongoing has a lot of different challenges, and it might make sense to say, let's win it and we'll think, but I actually believe that we also need to think about the future. That's my idea. If we don't think about this right now, we won't win. That's what I'm confident about. So I agree with you that we need to do this at the same time. And I'm sorry, Yuri, I am the bad cop today. I'm going to interrupt everyone, but everyone will make us leave, and we will not have an opportunity to speak. The main statement that I hear from everyone is about combining education and the job market. I have been hearing about this for years, if not decades. Oleg, if we speak about the agricultural sector, we spoke a lot about technology, but what about you? Do you support what has been said, or do you have very different challenges? Okay, this mic works. The challenges are very similar to what other sectors of economy are facing, and I will tell you that even before the war, we did not have the greatest situation in terms of finding qualified personnel and personnel in general. Now, the deficit was big even before the war. Now we have a 30% deficit. companies report that there are a number of reasons for this deficit. The first one is that agriculture is difficult, it is not prestigious, and requires people in rural areas. We all travel across Ukraine, especially in particular regions. We see that villages are almost entirely moving out. This is not something that young people find promising, and unfortunately, baby boomers are running out already. These were people who were ready to work 24/7, who were ready to do seasonal work, dedicate all time to their work. It's not interesting for young people. Young people are interested, by the way, that was also in your research, flexible hours, 3-week work day, and so on. In agriculture, it doesn't work this way. Yes, it is seasonal work, it's difficult work, but we cannot provide those conditions for young people. The second issue is lack of infrastructure in the village. Many companies are building housing, they are building dormitories. If a person doesn't have other activities beyond work, it's not interesting to them. We had these examples. We invited guys who graduated from National Agrarian University to have an internship. A month went by, and the guy said, "Bye, there's nothing to do in the village. We are not going to hang out with grandmas." Even though there were conditions for comfortable living, it was still not enough. What is the situation today? The high-tech things that are the most advanced in agriculture are also used in Ukraine today. Very often we see the very clear trend. We saw the World Exhibition of Agricultural Equipment, and we see the newest equipment, and it ends up in Ukrainian fields basically very quickly. And that is one of the solutions for the deficit of personnel. We invested in new equipment with use of exact agriculture, the use of working with big data. It's not that we are so innovative by our nature. We were forced to do that. Of course, a lot of guys who worked in agriculture had to join the defense sector. That is also very clear and expected. But where are we looking? And how are we trying to solve this? This is where we see this support of the government in vocational education, because this is really big. The second item is legislative regulation. Just if I have time, I will use this opportunity to share two cases. For a tractor driver to work on a large tractor, he should have 3 years of experience on a slightly smaller tractor. So in practice, in order to teach a tractor driver to do certain works, I just need a month. But mostly this is limited by the existing regulations. Usually people in agriculture are employed very officially, and this is the reliability of the business. Now many guys come back from the front line. They are demobilizing due to health or disability. This is also important because we offer jobs, and then a safety engineer comes to us and says, no, you cannot do this, they have a disability, they have limitations. But a person actually wants to work, they want to do something they enjoy. This is also an important thing. And of course, this is a bit on very short courses, a month or 2 or 3 months. Now, we actually organize such courses with many companies. We have an Agrikibete program which is available to our trainees. This includes theoretical courses and practical training. And another important point that I would like to make is that Germans, for example, have been using the practice of work done by students for a long time. Back when I was in my first year, I graduated from National Agrarian University. I went to Germany for an internship to work. I have the managerial education, but I went there to do an internship to see how things work. And the internship was very short and very intense. I learned a lot of new skills there. So all necessary knowledge. I didn't even have the driver's license. I don't use a tractor to go to the highway. I just drive around in the field. Yeah, and the police officer will not catch me speeding on the road. So that's also my suggestion. We can engage young people to do seasonal work. We need to make sure to adapt the training programs, to adapt them to the needs of agriculture. The average salary before the war was $800. Now, it can be different, of course, depending on the workload, because there is quite a bit of work now. So the salaries are also growing a bit. Oleg, thank you. By the way, if you have time and you are staying for the next panel, we'll have with us Yulia Kirillova, Deputy Minister of Veterans, and we actually talked to her about these limitations for military servants. So you are preparing the audience already, Dmitro. I will be asking you a very special question. Today we spoke about very practical things, but one statement that was made by Mikhail about education, about life and so on. As the Ukrainian Catholic University, you associate with liberal arts mostly, and we have representatives like of the Federation of Employers who take care of your university. And he keeps asking me, can we transfer the Ukrainian Catholic University model to other universities? I always say no. Can you explain why? Thank you, Olena, for your question. I think that everyone is unique. It's not an issue of us. But if I could speak a bit on this issue and refer to what you mentioned today, actually I have to say that I am not really a big optimist in terms of what we are talking about, because the challenges are really big. And you see, I don't have those numbers, so I'm thankful for this research. I wanted to look at it because we are also now taking part in this research, but we are mostly focusing on the so-called skills mismatch, that is the lack of necessary skills. So you want to take a closer look at the market to understand what is happening. Our ideas here are very simple. We think that if we actually work on fighting against Russia strategically, it also means that our economy should be accelerated at least 3 times compared to what we had before the war, so that we can count on a long-term strategic fight. And here we see a big need and a big problem with the productivity of labor. The data, the statistics, and our work experience actually show this quite well. As for our approach, it's actually about creating this ecosystem of development of students' competencies, connected not only with formal education, ensured according to a certain standard within the specialties, but rather various skill-based developments, adaptation to the workplace, mentorship, engaging companies and our graduates in the companies that could mentor and support students. And in this
університет є прекрасним ринком
context,
праці.
we
Тобто безпосередньо зараз ми
end up
працюємо з
seeing
тим,
that
щоб
university is
УКУ
also a
був цим
wonderful
ринком
labor
праці,
market.
який якраз
UCU
протягував так і давав
this
оці перші
wonderful labor market
досвіди,
that
про
provided
які
students
колеги
with their
говорили, так
first
що іноді
experience,
цього бракує.
whereas the colleagues did mention that this is
І
sometimes
коли ми
lacking.
говоримо про
And
це
when we
налагодження
speak
контактів
about
з
establishing
роботодавцями, і
ties
роботою,
with
так, з
the
бізнесом, не тільки з
employers,
бізнесом,
with
то
businesses
що ми можемо ніби тут
more,
побачити?
what can we see
Ну, найперше, я
here?
трошки також поділюся з тим,
First of
що
all, I will share a
наразі
bit
ми не маємо ніби 100%, але
that
наразі ми маємо
don't
цифру
have
82,4% всіх наших
100%,
студентів
I think, but
мають
now we have
досвід
the figure of
роботи.
84% of our
Як
students will have
оплачуваний,
work
так і pro
experience.
bono, які
Both
здобуті
paid
за
work
час
and pro
навчання.
bono
Це є дані
work,
трішки
that's
старіше
experience gained
23-го
during
року,
the
я
process of
підозрюю, що зараз
education.
трішки впало. Ми
This
знову ж
is
таки маємо
a slightly
тенденцію
outdated
дуже
figure
великого з
from
магістрами. В нас в основному
2024.
вся
I think
магістратура це є
we have a big trend
це
with
навчання
master
для дорослих,
students.
так,
We
але ми маємо
often
цей
have
показник нижче, очевидно, що на
grown-up
перший, другий курс, але на третьому, четвертому ми витягуємо.
mostly taking
Так,
our
тобто
master's
майже там
programs, but
83%
we do
цей
have
досвід роботи.
students
Але що ми тут
who
бачимо? Ми бачимо, що є
study
асинхрон між
for
бізнесом,
their
національною
bachelor's degree
владою,
and
органами
get
місцевого
work experience.
самоврядування,
But we see
університетами,
a
політика
certain
і цілі.
asynchronicity
Так, ми
between
про це частково говорили. Ми всі
local
зараз говоримо про те, що ми
authorities
орієнтуємося на
and
швидкі задачі, і більш-менш ми бачимо по роботі
between
з бізнесом, що бізнес
educational
розуміє,
establishments.
як
We
впорати ці свої швидкі задачі.
want
Коли заходить гра в довгу,
see businesses
коли ми починаємо
understand the
планувати, нам важко
strategizing
дійсно
part.
абсолютно всім
When we
планувати.
start
І
to
я не такий
prolong
же
things,
впевнений,
it's very
знаєте, що
difficult to
університети
manage
всі
them. I
адаптовані
am
під
not confident that
ці
all
всі зміни. І
universities
що
are
мені про це
prepared for
говорить, те,
these
що
changes.
компанії, корпорації
And
роблять
if
свої
you are telling
корпоративні
me that companies,
університети,
corporations
наймаючи
create their
знову ж
corporate
таки чи
universities
спеціалістів, чи HR-ів, чи наших, наприклад,
and hire
університетських колег,
specialists,
я не
HRs, our
критикую,
university
це дуже
colleagues.
добре,
I'm
що
not
таке
criticizing
відбувається, але
this. It's
роблять свої
very good that
корпоративні
this
університети,
happens. But they
замість
are
того,
organizing
щоб
their
зробити цей
corporate
корпоративний
universities
університет разом з університетом. Так,
instead
є такі
of
зразки, ось колеги з Дніпровської
doing
політехніки
this corporate
сидять,
university
які
together with
це
an
роблять в
actual
себе, так,
university.
але
We
я
have
думаю, що
colleagues who
оцей
do this.
асинхрон, він дуже добре відчутний.
But I think
Це
this
втрата часу і
asynchronicity
ресурсу,
is
на наш погляд,
very
і з цим
prominent.
треба
We think
серйозно
this
нам
is about
попрацювати.
losing time and that's
Навичкова
something to work
невідповідність
about.
– це велика біда. Ми заміряємо, ми маємо
The
деякі
skills
речі по
mismatch is
УКУ,
also
по
a big
наших
problem.
спеціальностях,
We look at
незважаючи на
certain
те, що там
things
пан Михайло Просвітовник говорить. Так, це
Ukrainian
дуже
Catholic
важлива для
University
нас річ,
specialties.
але ми також працюємо ніби з ринком фактично
We
і
kind of
ми
try to
заміряємо
work
ці
with the
речі.
market,
Але
we try to
мені здається,
measure
що
these
якраз корінь
things.
проблеми є в
But I
тому,
think that the root of the
за
problem
рахунок циклів, так, і за рахунок
is that
дуже швидких
because
змін, які ми
of
зараз
the
бачимо,
existing
які ринок,
cycles
в
and due to
принципі,
the rapid
потребує,
changes
і
that the
які
market
ринок сам не
needs, we
розуміє,
see
але
now,
які він буде
and the market
потребувати
doesn't
там через
necessarily
5-10
understand
років,
them itself.
то в нас утворюється цей дуже
We
природній
have
skills mismatch,
this
це
very
недостатність,
natural skills
яку важко
mismatch
виміряти,
that is difficult
де
to
немає
measure.
досліджень, і
I don't
я ще раз
have
говорю, що ми
a
наступного
research,
року плануємо
and I
приймати
will tell
дослідження, можливо,
you
колег з
again that
Альянсу
we
будемо
are
залучати, можливо,
going to
точно
have such
цей
research in
напрям
the future.
Альянсу
Maybe we
українських
will
університетів. Я просто тут
engage
хочу
colleagues
закликати,
from
знаєте,
the
бізнес і
University
think-танки
Alliance,
попрацювати з
and I want to
з
invite
цим
think
напрямком.
tanks to work with this
Бізнес
focus
розуміє
area.
короткі цілі.
Businesses
Дуже важко
understand
є довгим
short-term
спрямуванням з
goals.
тенденціями. Дуже
Planning
великі
for
зміни,
the
і
long-term
дані
planning
аналітики
for
не часто про це
trends
говорять.
is
І ми
absolutely
бачимо, що
not
останні річ,
easy.
якою що також
And
важливо скажу,
the last
що
item that I want to
те, що
mention,
сьогодні
that I find
говорилося, що ми маємо
important,
дуже різні підходи
is
до
that we have
навчання
very
творення
different
компетентностей.
approaches to
Молодь,
studying information of
ветерани, особи
competencies.
з інвалідністю, особи з передпенсійного пенсійного віку, це є всі різні
People of the
категорії, з
retirement or
якими
near
абсолютно
retirement
треба
age
по-різному
are all
працювати.
categories that we need to work with
І
in
часто
completely different ways.
корпоративно це дуже
And very
важко
often
одночасно
in
мені по 5
corporate
різних
terms, it's
підходів
quite
зробити.
difficult
Так само центром
to
зайнятості.
find all these
Одночасно на одну ту
approaches.
саму тему, лінійку 5-6 різних підходів дуже важко
For
зробити.
instance, we have one
Маємо
vacancy.
просто-напросто
How
всім
would we
сідати
communicate
із
it in 5
університетами це
different
робити.
ways to
Чому? Тому що
emphasize it for every target
стандартне навчання плюс
audience
LLM,
type?
lifelong learning, так, це життєве навчання, більше до
when
того
we
адаптивне.
take,
Тобто ми маємо на цей час, і ми маємо на ці
studying
речі
at university
ресурс.
plus
Ну,
follow-up
і
in lifelong
останнє, що
learning,
чим я
that's
хотів
something that
сьогодні
may
також
produce the most
поділитися,
sustainable results.
це
And something
є
I would like to
кілька
share
важливих речей,
today are
які ми
several
бачимо,
important things that
зокрема,
we see,
працюючи з,
in
там, з
particular,
нашими підприємцями, які
working
є
with
і роботодавцями,
our
які є і нашими донорами.
employers,
Ось,
our
перша річ – це те,
entrepreneurs that
що
work with us.
попри ніби
The
дуже
first thing
різні
is that
кількості
despite
уровнів, всіляких обговорень,
numerous discussions, we constantly receive requests about the fact that the employers don't have enough formats for discussion, for sharing experience.
Я думаю, що це дуже добрий посил університетам бути такими місцями, тому що це є наша природа, це є раз. Друга річ, яку ми бачимо, це те, що і те, що говорять наші працедавці, це те, що розвиток бренду серед студентів і молоді має починатися набагато раніше. Тобто в нашому випадку ми маємо ось ці пакетні пропозиції про тому, щоб ідентифікуючи, які скіли потрібні,
what kind of skills are needed. We always relate that to specialties. An employer can already be in the environment of the university and, as a matter of fact, via different programs, have access to youth. Yeah, we are not just talking now about youth, but also about adult people and people of the retirement age and people with disabilities. And actually, they can promote their brand because this brand component that was mentioned as of today already, I'm happy that it was mentioned today. It's something that is very important. It's something that is important. Yeah, well, students, what do they expect from their career? So it's a very good job of the brand. And what we could see from the feedbacks that the business we are working with, it makes them change like the value proposition, what they are offering. And they are adapting that, adjusting that all the time when they're with us from the very beginning, right? Only like young people are coming to the market, or the veterans are retrained, etc. Or people with disability, they can see from the very beginning, like regionally, they can adapt their offers, they can be more flexible to different forms of cooperation. The second thing is what we see that many businesses are changing the candidates' path in terms of communication, in terms of specifics of work, etc. So again, universities are helping them to feel this. And I absolutely agree. And we are also kind of tracing that because even when we conduct some events, or these are some career forums, or we can see that there is a conversion, for example. So those who are visiting, those who are contacting with businesses, 50% of them are just giving their contacts and they are coming to different interviews, right? So when this very good interaction is made, and I totally agree with the fact that, first of all, we need to think about labor productivity. And sometimes we are just forced to kind of form this interaction of the university, business, and authorities at places, and we have to look for something here. I am sorry, our time is really, really limited. I will stop you. I'm sorry. You mentioned a lot of different things. It's hard to disagree. We are trying to find the common language, you know, even with Mr. Mikhailov. We've been communicating with him for years, and now we are close to the fact. And I'm so happy. Dear colleagues, we have just a tiny amount of time, like literally 2 brief questions. If we have in the room, please raise your hand. Maybe somebody wants to ask our speakers. If not, I always have something to ask. No. Okay, I will work instead of you today. Oh, thank you so much. Go ahead. Thank you very much. The City of Zhytomyr Yerogold Company. Regarding professional technical education question, similar to what Elena asked, how quickly can we adjust to new professions and prepare specialists? Like, my problem is we are all sitting in these chairs. They are all painted with the powder color. So yeah, in Ukraine there are producers of equipment. Many people are using that, but nobody is preparing such specialists. So we came to the college with such a request. We are cooperating with them. They say we don't have the education plan for such profession, etc., etc. Thank you. Yeah, Viktor Kolomits, Executive Director, Federation of Employers, Kyiv Region. I like to continue the words of my colleague. Yeah, question, Ms. Elena, probably to you as well, because you're researching the topic and actually to all the speakers. The new law on professional education, can we implement that quickly? I think that it was not adopted in the second reading. Cool. So that is very important. By the way, our federation is now working on the pilot project of implementation of this, well, not law, not yet, but we are going to implement it in practice. So my question is following. This new law, if that will be adopted and the edition as it exists as of now, will it help to resolve the issues that disturb the businesses? Can professional institutions be in line with the criteria and demands from employers? Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Sergei Polipiv, graphics company. I'd like to add to my first colleague that, yeah, it coincided that we are producing equipment for powder paint, and that is what all the producers need, because metal, if you do not paint that, if you do not protect that, it won't last long. And the question about our AI, the issue about AI. If AI will continue developing in this way, what kind of prospects do you see in your field and prognosis regarding other? I guess we'll start with the last question about that, and then we will think with Mr. Mihail how to respond to all the other questions. Thank you very much, Elena. I will be very quick to give you the possibility to respond to the issue of powder, etc. But I cannot be 100% sure how AI will impact in the nearest years. But our prognosis with some reliable probabilities, we can see that there will be an increase in the number of automatized work in digital professions. That will increase gradually. We see that nowadays up to 10% there is reduction of staff in big companies. This is the fact that is already confirmed. Well, of course, I think that we will need to have the close cycle of training of young specialists who will work with AI. Actually, youth nowadays, youth that comes, they might have some benefits in terms of other people, professionals who are working for many years already, because they, youth, can quickly learn what is needed from the AI at the time when the person who 15, 20, already 30, some 30 years are working, well, it is harder for them to change their skills. So that has to be taken into account as well. I think, and we hope the third factor regarding digital technologies. Yeah, we hope that such democratic approach or increase of the impact of AI and increase in productivity will give the opportunity to increase manufacturing of digital products. And thus, it will help to balance this problem somehow. The problem of reduction of jobs. As for other industries, I think there will be huge impact of robotization. Now we are underestimating that because, for example, already now the pilot projects in some countries, well, the profession is fully substituted, for example, by something that has nothing to do with the equipment. Like, for example, those who are cleaning the hotels, like to wash, to substitute, etc. There are robots that are doing that already. Yeah, they are on the wheels, but they have hands. And the cost, well, let us say so $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Yeah, and they don't go on vacation, they have no sicknesses. Yes, that is why I think that robotics will be implemented really quickly. And what colleagues have mentioned, on the exhibition in half a year, it will be in manufacturing. I think those will be great changes. So altogether, we have to think together with the education, together with businesses, together with the state. We have to consider how do we give the opportunity to people to be retrained. That is incredibly important task. Thank you very much, Mr. Mihailo. How do we divide the issue on professional technical education? Because you asked, do we need some other deputy? And I honestly said, no. And now it seems that, yeah, we needed it. Yeah, it's just right now you are responding instead of the deputy, you know, in the next team of the Ministry of Education, we know already where Elena will work. No. I already had this offer from you, you know. Okay, I'll be very brief about professional technical education, and actually I will ask Ms. Elena to comment on that a bit more. Indeed, the law is important, and the law is considered as being prepared to adoption, so it's a very important law. It's part of our European Euro integration obligations, by the way, so I have no doubts that it will be adopted quite soon. In the framework of implementation of this law, in the framework of implementation of everything that was done in professional education in the latest years, I'm so proud that really our kind of workshops were updated and our material and technical base and equipment was updated greatly. This law provides for the things that our colleague from Zhytomyr mentioned. Actually, the business will take care of professional technical education. They will cooperate, and it seems to us that it is very important because it cannot be the professional field of professional education separate and business separate. No, they have to be united. United not on the level, with all due respect to what we are doing with higher education, but on the level of national agency of ensuring quality, different accreditation processes, etc. That has to be on the level of certain educational program that is preparing for a certain company. The other thing is that it's not always possible on the level of higher education because it is like higher from, higher education from professional, it's a bit different. Everything that was mentioned until now, I would like to react. I do understand that I am brief, promise. Very often we are saying that we have some kind of discrepancy between education and the labor market. Obviously, that exists. So, as a manager in education and the state, what is the main leverage of impact? The leverage of impact are budget places. Now, the students are coming to the university. We can ensure more or less like budget places to study. Last year, 7,049 persons entered the university on specialty law. 673 budget places. That is logical that we don't need that many lawyers, but the demand is crazy. The most popular specialty of the last year, 11,682 students, management. They were competing for 612 budget places, right? So that means that if you were entering management, your chances to get the budget place, 1 of 20. 5%, right? But if you were trying to come to, for example, computer engineering, we had, no, let us better take computer science. Yeah, that's more popular. 6,724 applicants, 3,000, more than 3,000 received budget places. 911 grant. Obvious is where there is like popular thing and where we have, our priorities of the state. Agrarian field. Agrarian field, 3,098 persons entered the university, 1,600 received budget places. So it means that more than half of applicants were taken to budget places. That's very important, but the problem is that the average score is lower than 150. Approximately 140. I can't say for sure because I don't have the numbers here. But, as for our colleagues, so let us say, for example, automatization and computer integrated technologies, robot techniques, etc. 1,680 budget places. Machine construction, 20,005 applicants, 1,350 budget places. Okay, and I can continue with the specialties. What is obvious? Obvious is that we are directing the budget money for the specialties that obviously we will need in the future. By the way, in order to end up with one question that was there regarding AI, I am very skeptical regarding all the people who are applying for accounting nowadays. We all understand probably that AI can substitute accountants quite quickly. However, we have the situation right now. I will say the exact numbers right now to you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Taxation and accounting, it is called 2,990 persons have applied last year, 199 budget places. Yeah, we are obliged to give the budget places for each specialty. We are giving like absolute minimal number of those because actually we do understand that the possibilities for self-realization in such fields and such specialties, they won't have many chances to succeed in there, but still, students are applying for these specialties, and the Ministry of Education, we can't say, no, do not go for these specialties. What did we do? We did the indicative self-cost for businesses. Yeah, you shouldn't know in detail what it is. As a matter of fact, at the specialties where we wouldn't like to have students, we made the expensive contract on purpose. Yeah, agrarians, cheap contract, and many budget places. Cheaper, not cheap, I would say. But for the specialties that the market is overfilled with, expensive contract. For example, 60, 70, 80,000 hryvnias to study at management or marketing. Okay? Why? Because we are trying to use certain market methods nowadays in order to reduce the motivation to go for such specialty. Unfortunately, still, we are coming. Yeah, coming back to professional orientation. Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. So look, here we are as groups of businesses that are representing employers from the point of view of business. We all understand how important it is to direct the population to the specialties that we need. But let us now consider ourselves as parents. Where do our children go? Where would we like to see our children? You know, we have to understand that the choice of the specialty very often, like the main impact, comes from parents, you know, from parents' example. And therefore, I'm always addressing people as parents primarily, not as representatives of businesses. Just be very attentive. How are we directing, how are we motivating our children? Maybe we are not... Yeah, we are doing bad thing for them, bad service, because we are advising them to go for management, etc. From the point of view of business, we understand that in the future they will be much less needed than agrarian engineering, computer technologies, machine construction, etc. That these are the places where the child can just release their fullest potential. No, the mom is coming back at 11 p.m. because I am coming back from Verkhovna Rada working, on that. I am sorry, they will ask us to leave the room for the second panel, and I'm sure you want some coffee. So at 2, the Verkhovna Rada will consider the amended version. It has changed significantly. There was a very loud discussion with the Ministry of Education and the labor market and with us, but where they supported us, thank you to the ministry, the impact of employers is not just increasing, but it will impact financing, the programs that the institution will develop, and most important, full deregulation for the institution and autonomy. So when you come after the adoption of the law to the institution, they won't have to get the license, station, etc., to change the program for you. They will only need your approval with you that you will take people to practice or dual education, or you will employ them. It's the main criterion. And the advisory board or supervisory board that you will be included too, because you will cooperate with the educational institutions. It's not just creation of supervisory board, but it's for the business that is cooperating and investing into this institution. That is how you will impact. That is very, very quickly. You see how quick I am. And Mikhailo nodded because he agrees. Thank you very much. And I have to not let our guests go. You can go, but I need a photographer to take photos of them while they are still here. Photographer almost killed his camera, so be quiet. Don't scare away our photographer. You're standing up. Yeah, we have the good name. Yeah. Oh, they want me as well. Okay, I will give away the microphone.
Okay, I see that we can start. The curtain is getting drawn, and they gave me a sign that we can start. So we are following up on a very important topic. I hope that you are not tired of the research, but we have another research to present. I think it will be a follow-up to what we already talked about, but from a slightly different angle. It will be called Expectations from Employers in a Situation of Total Burnout. And the presentation will be delivered by Evgenia Bliznyuk, founder and director of the research company Gradus Research. She is online with us. Evgenia, are you with us? Okay. Wonderful. Remember how we said everything changes very fast, so okay, things change. That's why I will invite the second panel here. I think it's very big honor because Yulia Kirillova, who is the Deputy Minister for Veteran Affairs, cancelled her business trip to see us here. And when we started talking about issues and discussions, Yulia and I are working with a view of the future without waiting for problems. We already discussed most of the things we are discussing today. Then I don't see in the room, but I saw her here in general, Olena Shulyak, head of the Committee on Organization of State Power, Local Self-Government, Regional Development and Urban Planning. Olena, we are waiting for you. Okay, she's coming back. And I have two very reliable men here who came here in time. Dmytro Linik, chair of the board at the Federation of Employers of Ukraine. He is here not only in the capacity as the head of the federation, but he's also going to share how he feels about these issues based on his own cases. Olena is here. Let's say hi to her, everyone. See, if you started applauding earlier, she would have come earlier as well. Then we have Nitin Umapati. I'm sorry, I apologize. Lead economist and program leader for human development at the World Bank. We talk a lot about all these issues as well, so I invite you to participate in the panel. You're tired, yeah? Okay, you are getting no more coffee. Then we have Zoya Heinze, head of public relations at Mitinvest Group, and she is my close friend because when I have practical cases, I tell her, Zoya, I really need something. She always responds to me, so we'll have a very friendly atmosphere today. Dmytro Pavlyuk, Deputy Director for Health and Safety of Employees at MHP. So basically, we have this federation of employers and we build Ukraine. So we are going to have a very interesting panel because we are going to speak in this very general scope of all problems. But now we are moving on to very real cases and real things that have to do with our very specific audience, which merits a lot more attention. So I would like to start with Yulia, because at the previous panels we mentioned veterans, limitations for access to the workplace, for instance, because they have to be absolutely healthy, and we know that they usually aren't. We spoke about a special approach to them and about the potential of the labor market and what we are going to do. So, Yulia, let's find out what you feel about this. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Olena. If we speak about veterans, they are proactive people who joined the armed forces back in the day. Previously, veterans were a uniform category of the population. If we speak about veterans after 2022, we see that the armed forces of Ukraine are now they now consist of actually different people with different competences, different skills, and their needs are also quite different from those that we had before and quite varied. That is why since 2022 in the Ukraine Veteran Foundation, we started doing research on the portrait of a veteran, the needs that veterans have, not only in employment, but in general after they come back to civilian life. And there are many controversial issues here, which include, do we speak about transition from the military to civilian life? Is it a comeback? And after many years of research, we are saying that this is a comeback because many people go back to their workplace. And as of today, we see that on average, those people who come back to their workplaces, less than 50% remain in their companies for a variety of reasons. This is also connected to their physical health, because those people who are coming back today, they are usually people who suffered big injuries, serious trauma. These were people who were actually at the front line, ground zero, who were on the battlefield, who also have certain physical limitations. We often see and can trace, especially in recent years, that when the situation on the front line has changed. We had a war of position, then we had an advance where we had a lot of firearm wounds, and now we mostly have a war of drones, a war of FPVs, and we see a lot of limb loss. And during the past half a year, past year, we have more and more people who lose their arms. And this, of course, leads to certain restrictions when people want to go back to work, because those people who were injured in 2022, 2023, they had a long rehabilitation from a year to a year and a half. And now they are joining the workforce and going back to their civilian professions. And there are a lot of restrictions, like we said. The government launched a program to re-equip workplaces for such people. But there are a lot of barriers where people cannot be allowed to participate in these professions due to physical limitations. But as practice shows, as common sense shows, a lot of people with amputations do go back to serving in the armed forces of Ukraine, National Guard, and not only the rear, but also to the battlefield. They keep doing that kind of work, and that's why it is crucial for us today to reconsider all these outdated standards about equipment at the workplace and so on for such people, because it's not just veterans who get injuries and have some physical limitations. There are a lot of civilians as well who get serious injuries due to massive shelling. We have a lot of children who suffer such injuries. And in the future, these children will also become part of the active workforce. They will become the economically active part of the population. And we also need to create some labor conditions for them, because it is unfair to limit them. It's unfair to them to limit them in some kind of work that can be remote, call center work, and so on. Based on our competitive programs by the Ukraine Veteran Fund, we see that we have already supported over 1,000 veteran businesses, and we see that the men and women who have suffered serious injuries create their own manufacturers. And very often in small and medium businesses, you are the accountant, you are the employer, you are the employee, and so on. And we see how they modernize their production, how they are adapting the workplace. And this is actually a driver for changes. And that example and experience that we can learn from, where we can test and develop policies, government policies that are here. Thanks to the National Agency of Qualifications, we have a project where we sort of translate all of military experience into civilian standards. I recently had a meeting with companies, with one company about employment of veterans. This is a security guard company. And I said, okay, look, we have a veteran who was a sniper during his service. What job will you offer him? I said, what job will you offer him? If he doesn't have physical issues, he can work as a security guard. And I often share this example for other employers and for HRs, that a sniper is a person, not just a person who is durable and knows how to use a variety of weapons. This is a person who is very stress resilient. And another thing that they can do, they can do complex mathematical calculations very quickly. They can be good financial analysts. When we had a meeting at the National Bank, we put together different bank leaders. This was new for them, and many of them actually started looking for veterans to work in these sectors, veterans from similar professions. Also, we developed methodological recommendations for employers concerning methodological guidelines for employment of veterans. These guidelines include all the regulatory base that is currently necessary for every employer or veteran to clarify how they can be employed, how to organize the workday, what rights and guarantees the government offers to war veteran. And also need to work with the team, because we need to not only integrate the veterans to the teams, we have to prepare our teams for the comeback of the veterans. This has to be a two-way street, because today we still live in the situation of the full-scale war, and according to our register, we already have about 1.3 million records in the Unified State Register of War veterans, and actually 1.3 million. That is the proactive population that will come back to their workplaces. That's very cool. I want you all to hear this number, 1.3 million. When you speak about the deficit of workforce, we have 1.3 million people who will come back. Also, we have people who have their experience, have their profession, and this is absolutely not. The people who are drafted were not unemployed, mostly. So we need to create all conditions not to lose these people, because according to various calculations, according to various studies, our loss of economically active population, according to various calculations, is 5 to 7 million. This is people who left, people who stayed in the temporarily occupied territories, people who were drafted into the army. And obviously the most important thing, in my opinion, is to work with the young generation, because as of today, I see that a lot of young people go abroad to study, to work, because they don't see their future in Ukraine. So we need to work with these categories. And among those who study in higher educational establishments, according to the statistics, we have over 20,000 children who are currently getting training in respective educational establishments, and we are motivating them to stay in Ukraine by paying for their education, but we need to keep working so that these children see their professional future here in Ukraine as well. That's why we actually asked to add vocational education to the program. You said higher, and I just started getting excited after the first panel. So, yeah, Yulia, thank you very much. As for the sniper, this is actually interesting because I have been working professional qualifications for many years, and everything's clear. But I said, I don't know what to do with sniper, and she said, do you know what kind of calculations they do? And that's what our discussion started from. We started looking at a completely different side. It's completely unexpected for us, and I think it's very cool because the dialogue is important.
Elena, I know you informed me that in order to have the normal discussion, you want to ask a provocative question and to set the tone for the discussion. And I think now we have a really great audience because we can hear totally different opinions. So the floor is yours, and I think that it will be interesting. Okay, everything that is happening today is interesting with such a wonderful moderation. Elena, thanks to you. Dear friends, I am so glad to greet all of you today here. I will start with the number that Ms. Yulia mentioned, 1.3 million veterans who already today are documented in our registers, official registers. After the end of war, we understand that this number might be bigger. And for us, as for the state, we need to clearly understand where, what, on which stage, what approaches do we need to use for these people, for the people thanks to whom we are able to be here today in this room. Today we have, in planning processes, we have quite good experience, I would say, of the Kyiv region before coming to provocation, to provocative things. I would like to say we were working with the Kyiv Oblast Kyiv region when on the level of the region they implemented the holistic recovery program, and I would say that there was proper legislation adopted, and each community, each region is analyzing economics, demographics, etc. They are looking at the prism of development of their region from the different points of view and in terms of different issues. And when we are talking about development, we are talking about inclusion, about accessibility, and it's not even about physical availability, not about physical lack of barriers, but it's about inclusivity and availability in a broad sense. And on the example of Kyiv region, we have a quite good case. So when we determined 3 cities in Kyiv region, where in these cities there were educational institutions determined that will work with veterans in order to provide them with the services on requalification. Of course, all the infrastructure, physical, architectural, it includes all the issues related to kind of no barriers, but we clearly understand where, in which city, what number of veterans, what educational programs they will study, and then what enterprises of Kyiv region will employ them. So we were trying to make the closed kind of cycle, so to say, and look at the issue of employment of veterans from the point of view of spatial planning and planning of like strategic, economical planning, etc., etc. As of today, it seems to me that Kyiv region is the only region that approached that in such a holistic manner, because I'm telling about that because it seems to me that on the level of local self-government, we are not doing enough. It seems like employment, education, yeah, we just discussed our issues, and then we did not bring that to a bit higher level. So I'd like in our discussion also to have local self-governments, they should participate, and also heads of regional communities, because the issue of 1.3 million veterans is much broader as of today that we can allow ourselves. Yeah, we will keep that we will make a note for our organizers, like to invite local self-governments. As for the provocation, in Verkhovna Rada, as of today, we have one initiative registered. It is called, it's Draft Law 13180. It was registered by a group of different people's deputies, and it is making certain amendments to our legislation. So it's about like if there is more than 8 people, of staff, we should give the quote like 5%. It's like mandatory. They have to employ the participants of hostilities, etc., veterans. My colleague, Mr. Hetmantsev, came with the alternative initiative. He says it's not enough. The things that we wrote, it's not enough. Let's do that even kind of broader. So for the state institutions, especially like customs, tax services, law enforcement structures, let us make the quote of 10%, and we will employ veteran community. He didn't stop on that. I mean, colleagues together with Danilo Hetmantsev, they did not stop on that. And they offered to move even further in terms of businesses that are employing veterans. And yeah, it's a more complicated system there that they are offering regarding the fact that who is employing, they are getting some additional benefits and paying taxes. Those who are not employing, well, we cannot say that it will be punished, but still you will be punished, to be honest. You will pay financially some indirect tax because you are not employing veterans. In parallel with these initiatives, it seems to me even before these initiatives were registered, we saw a range of researches. One of such waves of research, so to say, active group, I think, was doing that. They were asking the opinion from the society, and more than 66% of respondents mentioned that we are voting for the quotes. We think that quotes are needed. They have to be mandatory on the legislative level so that it is the kind of obligation to employ veterans. And we had the discussion because not everybody in the parliament supports this mandatory quote. This discussion goes beyond the parliament nowadays, and central executive bodies are engaged and profile ministries. And now I think on the 24th of February, there will be big committee hearings on this issue, because what did the Ministry of Veterans do? They took the practice, and we remember that before 2022, there was an opportunity or the possibility to quote the different categories of population. In 2022, these quotes were cancelled. And as of today, there is no positive confirmation of the fact that these quotes were functioning in a good manner. So that is why I asked to do the discussion. Do we need the quotes, or maybe we don't need the quotes, etc. So I am sitting with your results, Ms. Yulia, Ukraine Veterans Fund, and it says that, yeah, the veterans are saying that there are barriers. So when they are coming for employment, I think the number is bigger than 50%. It is divided into different directions. However, that also might be one of, well, maybe quoting it's something positive, and that will resolve the problem that is mentioned in the research of Ukrainian Veterans Fund. As of today, as you understand, the issue is full of discussions, and that will be discussed for quite some time still to find the best solution possible. And it seems to me that, for example, like all of us, those who are related with businesses, we know the quotes, so we know about employment of people with disabilities. And I will say unpleasant things. Not all employers are employing such people. Sometimes they might just do that formally. So we don't want to, seeing the mood of the society, seeing that the society is supporting the idea and adopting proper legislation, and then the legislation will not work. We cannot allow that to ourselves in regard to veterans and our defenders and those people. We should treat them with special respect. So it's important to have this discussion. It's important to hear recommendations from real businesses, from expert environment in this issue. Thank you very much. Yes, we will have this discussion. It is so good that we have such a panel today. Yes, actually, quotes were not cancelled, but we are kind of recalculating that differently, because earlier on there was a quote for people with disability for all this stuff, and now they should have the document about the condition of their health. So if we don't even have such a position at our enterprise, we cannot employ the person. So we made it more realistic, this recalculation. So in general, I think it's about culture. So that is why, Dmitry Mykolaievich, I know how many things you are doing without any commands, laws, etc. Why do you do that? As a businessman, not even as a head of the kind of union, but why do you do that? Olena asked to say truth and nothing except for the truth. But people might beat me. It seems to me that in 2015, my assistant went for a raise. She was promoted. And we were looking for a substitute. And one day, there was a girl at the reception. By the way, she was also Elena. Her name was Elena. And she says, I want to work with you. And I'm asking, kid, where are you coming from? Mariupol. When did you come to Kyiv? Today. Straight from the train station. I am talking to her for 5 minutes and I say, okay, you're employed. She says, tomorrow, and I'm saying, no. Just go ahead, go to the reception, they will tell you what to do, etc. I never felt sorry, that I didn't even know the word IDP at the moment, but I employed her. Mihailo is not in the room yet, but during the coffee break, I'm sorry, I will quote our discussion. I didn't ask for permission to do that, but he says, we contacted with the center, Zhytomyr center. There are people, but they don't want to work. It's like employers don't want to employ, people don't want to work. But people want to work. Employers want to employ. I think that together, we are making one common mistake. As employer, I know, and each of you knows, that even if for a month or even for 2 months the person takes the vacation, well, in order to return them to work, they need some time to adapt, to adjust, it's life. When the person has to be displaced, they are not just going through the fact when the job is offered to them in half a year or a year. It's not a month of a vacation, and I think then I realized that the sooner the person is included to the staff, like general staff, the better it is. Sorry, what I'm doing right now? Yeah, I know the place in Sumy, Kharkiv, where many of my friends are, and I know that the villages will be replaced soon. And I'm saying to my people, quickly go there to the village council, to local self-government, and just tell them there is such a place, Kostopil. Yeah, we can take the woman for control. We can employ the men, also. So we give them housing, we give them place to live and place to work. And it seems to me that when the person is packing and they don't know where to go, and when they are offered in this moment, when maybe they are facing the biggest challenge in their life, that is the fast integration that we all need. And again, I never felt sorry that I made such an integration. Back then, Elena told me one interesting thing. She said how in her childhood she was coming to Kyiv and she had a dream to live here. And she says, that was not the dream that I had. That is, quote, very often our dreams are coming true not the way we expected, but we can do, each one from our side, something that to help to transform that dream into a real dream. Looking at myself from the side, I would think probably he's lying a bit. But I came to the reception today and Nastya, she's also IDP. I'm saying, Nastya, come and tell me what burnout is. Just tell me in human language. How do you worry? What do you feel? How do you cope with that burnout? What do you do in order not to have burnout? So she told me something. Yeah, I communicated with my daughter. My daughter is studying, etc., etc. So 1.3 million It's not a number. Those are people. Those are people whom we need a job. And these are people who are looking for a job. And such simple things, in my opinion, speed up the possibility for us as employers to find the effective employee. And for the person who's in trouble, not because of their will, because of this war, it helps them to find a new place of work, and maybe even the place for residence for all their life. I don't know, somehow it's fate, maybe. But today in the morning, Hena comes to me, my driver. Yeah, so till the 24th February 2022. Yeah, his code name is Dmitro Jordan. Yeah, so he's a veteran, and he's working as a driver nowadays. Dima, take a seat. Yeah, please come in. There is a seat for you. I can't lie about them, you know. Yeah, so he was bringing some things, etc., so you could see him. The third attack brigade, the first month, he was volunteer. Yeah, so he was transformed, to the 3rd Brigade. Hena is in hospital. He brought some materials because we are conducting some charitable things. So, I am saying, Hena, today, during the discussion, we will have such thing like nervousness, burnout, etc., etc. He says, there's nothing worse than here. I'm saying, why? He says, I'm watching the TV. I'm reading the internet. You know, I want to go to my comrades. Because, we have lack of drones there, etc., but here, this corruption. And this is causing my burnout. And I understand him. And I understand that he's been telling me lots of things. I will not exhaust you with all of that, how he is talking about, like, how they escaped from drone, etc., and what kind of burnout was there, but I understand. We are going here, and I'm saying, Dima, tell me please about the burnout. What is that for you? How was it? To have a job. And that is my beloved topic, you know. It seems to me that there is no better cure for that than work, than employment. No better system for recovery than work. And I will tell you about another mistake of mine that I realized, because the sooner we meet people who have to be displaced, the better. But 2014, from Hostomel, people are called, and during the summer I'm going to visit them in Brigade 72. There were like around 30 people. And I realized that these 3 months that I haven't seen them, it's a huge gap. Today we don't have it. Today, each person who is mobilized, who's taken to the service, we ensure them with all the things necessary. I think integration is the correct word, but even better, not to lose this connection. Let us do it this way. We think that our people are on a business trip. You know, we are in touch with them. From time to time, we are paying wages to their bank card. We are asking about their needs, each one who is serving. I know our colleagues from Medinvest, they are working the same way. I'm so proud for the Federation of Employers that most of us are working in this format. They are saying, so support is there from the moment when they get this kind of call for serving. Not only this, because they are taking like the director or deputy, they are taking them and they go together with them to the military. They are doing that all together. Like we are supporting them throughout the process. And another example I will tell. Ball, dancing ball. Can you imagine? He didn't mention how the person is dancing. Can you imagine? Dancing ball during the war. I felt so. We had several stages, you know. Some stages Jordan was undergoing, I don't know, kind of. Yeah, where was the? So we played with Dynamo Kyiv together, football team. Yeah, it was dry for our guys. I understand. What did we do? Cards, football. I'm a fisherman. Like, yeah, we went fishing, like barbecue, etc. Sports prosthesis. Wonderful, girls. That's rehabilitation. That's not even employment. People are getting joy from life. And at a certain point, there was the word, maybe we'll make dancing ball. From the moment when that sounded, like it was a year approximately from that time. I thought they will beat me up.
Like, come on, I didn't believe that this could happen. Like, I didn't believe it was possible during the war. And at a certain point, like, I mean, until a certain point, the guys were resisting. I don't know, maybe they just felt some type of way about this, but there was resistance. But a time came, they started sort of pushing us to do that. And then we had another psychological transition, like to how do we dance, where do we dance, how do we organize this? And are they going to be wearing tuxes or military uniform? I said, you wear what you want. Then there was a discussion, well, it should be clear that these are military servants, that they are military servants with prosthetics. Should we show the prosthetics? I asked, he hates it when somebody walks around with a visible prosthetic. But our guys went up the Hoverla Mountain, Kilimanjaro, swam across a canal, like... Let's have a round of applause. People are doing impossible things. So I asked Dmitro, I was like, look, there is a discussion going on. Are you going to, like, pull up your pant, like, he was dancing and he found a compromise with me and with himself where he showed it. I may be telling you simple things, but in my life, this is about recovery, indeed. And when we were doing this, when we are having a discussion of what elements we should introduce to make it modern, how are we going to develop? And one of the formats of our team on the country's recovery, it was one of the first things. There were no recovery programs at the time. So going back to the ball, 2 guys had double amputation. Artem Moroz danced in New York. You may have seen the story when he danced in the square in New York. Bogdan, when I met him, no, it happens that I go to the hospital. It isn't always easy to meet everyone, but I go to the hospital and I ask the director of the recovery team, how are they psychologically? And he said, yeah, sure, he's very easy to talk to. This is his 9th clinic he's coming to. I come there. And they go there, hi Bogdan, they told me you're writing a book about Ukrainian hospitals and this is your 9th place. He is laughing immediately. That gives you a chance to speak to the person. So I asked, Bogdan, what is your dream? He said, I want to stand up and to organize a small business. I'm a welder and I want to have my company for welding gates. After the dance, Bogdan and I were talking, yeah, sure, do the gate. the programs are important, communication is important, but I feel that the most important thing in this thing is just these simple conversations. Dmitro maybe doesn't know this, but I saw him looking at me during events. And when Hena went to the war, I was driving, I didn't have a drive. I was like, well, Hena will come back soon. And he comes up to me and he says, do you have security? And I know he thought I was driving myself. He said no. And then at the job interview, our first conversation, he was like sitting opposite me. And I said, Dima, how often do you feel like killing someone? I don't know, it was like the first or second question. And he was like, well, about once a week. And I was like, okay, he's telling me the truth. I'm sorry for sharing such simple things, but it seems to me that the faster we understand the problem of a person who loses their a big part of their life and loses their job, it will be easier for them, it will be easier for us employers. And then we will understand that our people, those who take up the arms, who joined the army, they are essentially our employees on a business trip. We don't lose touch with them. And the word reintegration, I don't like this word very much. I'm sorry, I will be stopping you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep talking and talking. But when you don't lose touch with the person, when the team doesn't lose touch with the person goes back home, goes back to their team. Sorry for the big words. Helena. The response was indirect, but what we do is not the quotas, about changes in culture. If culture changes, quotas aren't necessary. If there is no change of culture, quota won't help. So I actually completely support everything that our companies do. So Zoya, I think I will give you the floor. We spoke about secret things, about balls, about things like that. You absolutely cannot be undercover, Zoya and I. But our home, Zoya and I, was occupied since 2014. We want to go back home. This is our big dream and hope. Every time we dream how we would go home, when we would go home. We know the car, we know the route. Zoya, Metinvest has been mentioned twice in this event already. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing everything that you do? Investing, helping the guys and the girls, the IDPs, the veterans. Why? Is the government giving you something for this? Just to be brief, we cannot not do this. This is our calling. This is in our DNA. For Metinvest Group, the war did start back in 2014 when our first employees went to defend Ukraine's freedom. And since then, almost 11,000 employees of Metinvest joined the defense forces of Ukraine. And now about 8,000 are still part of the defense forces. And about 1,000 of our employees have come back to our enterprises. Overall, today we have about 60,000 employees working in mining, and overall we have about 360,000 employees. But before the full-scale war, we had twice as many. Metinvest Group knows more than anyone what it is like to lose people because of the war. 2022 was probably the biggest challenge for us, because since then we lost our enterprises in Mariupol and Avdiivka. We suspended production in Pokrovsk. However, now we are considered the biggest private employer for veterans because, by the way, this is about quotas, about 20% of our total staff. Of course, this includes those who are in the military now, but overall 20% are veterans or future veterans. This is what Metro was talking about as well. For us, the path of a veteran starts from the moment when a person joins the military. The company has its own reintegration system, which starts when we support a person while they are in the military. We support them physically, we support them psychologically. If there is an injury, we help with physical recovery. Overall, the support system cost $150,000 last year, and this year this amount is going to be $550,000. So when a person joins the military, we do not lose touch with this person, we do not lose touch with their family, and the adapted onboarding is immediately prepared. We have employees who are responsible for work with the veterans. So when a person comes back from the military and goes back to work, they can confirm their qualification. And if previously this time was 6 to 8 months, now, thanks to work with Elena, with the Federation of Employers, this system, this procedure has simplified. It takes way less time. And the person can confirm their qualification immediately in the workplace. Of course, not every veteran can go back to their previous workplace. So a person can receive retraining and also receive higher education in the first non-governmental technical university, Metinvest Polytechnic. We have 26 veterans who are studying with us now, getting higher education. This includes employees of Metinvest and defenders of Mariupol who are now training under one of the programs within the Heart of Azovstal project. In addition to professional recovery, the Metinvest group also provides physical recovery. Almost 140 people, both civilian and military servants, have received prosthetics and physical rehabilitation thanks to this help. For a broad group of veterans in Zaporizhzhia and Kryvyi Rih, we have the Free Waves program. It is rehabilitation through swimming. It is a joint project with Olympic champion Silantiev. This is adaptation, rehabilitation through swimming. In addition to our work with the veterans, we also work with the teams, because it's not the veterans who should adapt to society. It is society that should adapt to the veterans. That is why we have a number of programs. First, this is a program for employers, leadership during the war. Over 1,100 people have taken this training in order to be as effective as possible in their work with a person coming back to the production. In addition, for a broader group of employees, we have provided the training Hero Next to You. This program was developed together with military servants so that the teams would understand what kind of experience veterans have obtained during their service, and so they can have a better understanding of them, and so that veterans will have an easier time going back to their workplace. In addition, we have video projects to enable a person to watch this video content at any time they prefer, like how to talk to a veteran, what questions should or shouldn't be asked, how they should act with veterans. And within the company, over 16,000 employees watch this video. But we actually want to enable other people to use our experience because, like I said, we developed this experience since 2014. So these videos were developed as a video course in cooperation with veterans together with military intervention specialist and psychologist Olena Nikolska, and these courses are available on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. So yeah, I know that it's not easy, but I have to stop you. Yeah, I will be wrapping up. I will say that we have about 4,000 open vacancies. Of course, we do have loss in the number of employees due to hostilities, due to people moving to safer places. They are also affected by military draft. But what we do with this challenge is that we train people so they can have several specializations. And second most important thing is that we are waiting for all of our employees to come back. We are ready to retrain them. We are ready to employ veterans from the labor market. Another vector of our work is that we work with women. After 2022, the government suspended the ban for women to work in physically demanding jobs. It was already mentioned today that there is no such thing as male professions or female professions. We have women driving excavators in Zaporizhia. We have a metal worker. There is a woman who decided to become an ore processor and joined Midwest Polytechnic. She is the only woman in the group, and she is the only one who is receiving a scholarship. So this is comprehensive work, comprehensive efforts, and I really want them to help us find the human potential for Ukraine's recovery and for us to overcome everything. Thank you very much, but there is one secret, you know, there is nothing good about losing Mariupol except for one thing. I will mention this. We already mentioned independent qualification centers. It was after the loss of Mariupol we were able to quickly launch the system in Ukraine. We were supported by the parliament, by all relevant ministries, and they emerged because we understood how many people we can lose. And they lost everything. They have no documents. So in order to keep them in Ukraine, to stop them from moving out, the system actually worked. Most of them stayed in Ukraine and kept working in Ukraine. Thank you, Dmitro, for pushing me, and thank you, Olena, for supporting us, for believing in us, and making all necessary amendments to the legislation. It was very fast. In 6 months, we were able to launch a completely new procedure that doesn't even exist in the European Union. I moved on to international cooperation, but if I may, I would like to wrap up with you, because you do a lot of global things, and we are moving on to the practical section. It's so good that I'm friends with everyone. I will give you the floor, because I know that MHP is also a company that puts a lot of effort into maintaining this potential and doing a lot of the right things. So let's brag. Please brag so that everyone knows what you do. Yes. Can I have the remote for my presentation? I monopolized the remote a little bit. Thank you, dear colleagues. If you remember, the first presentation was a study by the Federation. They showed what employees need in the workplace. And we saw that over 50% emphasize security and safety. They want to feel safe in the workplace. And I want to share our experience at MHP when the security function became not just formal, not just on paper, but became part of our corporate philosophy. This philosophy was born in these difficult times, and it is still developing now. We often hear that people are our main capital. That's true. But in these difficult times, it's not just a statement. We have a very practical, tangible proof. We have people who are drafted. We have veterans in our team. Ukrainians are constantly stressed. So employers' responsibility for people's safety and health is growing. While previously people were a bit iffy about safety in the workplace, they were like, okay, it's important, we will do this. Today, they actually are interested in safety in the workplace. We can see this based on the surveys among our employees and an increased demand for first aid courses among volunteers, among commercial centers. And I want to emphasize that the demand for these courses has grown sixfold since the beginning of the full-scale war. The war has completely transformed the approach to safety, which is now not only about maintaining government standards, but also the well-being programs. And here is how it works here at MHP. We have two streams: the corporate program of care for physical and mental health called MHP Health, and the program of safety in the workplace, Safety Matters.
So, what is health? That is a holistic but complex program on safety and health of employees. It's not just about treatment, it's about supporting health and about diagnostics. Our expectations are as follows. This program has to increase the productivity of work, the length of work of our employees at the enterprise, to increase the brand of employer, loyalty of employees and potential candidates. And what is most important, of course, is reduction of traumatic circumstances, cases of natural death, a number of medical leaves, and also professional illnesses. The main feature of this program is the corporate doctor. Corporate doctor is present all the time at each enterprise, and this is referring them to the profile specialists, and also some hospital leaves, like the medical documents, because we always have such volunteer blocks as medical insurance, and this is covering both like acute illnesses and some chronic diseases that are coming to some acute stages, some traumas, accidents, and also some traumas for civilians, traumas that are kind of emerging from the hostilities. If you want me to provide more details, we have 35 doctors on 43 locations. They are meeting patients 2 times per week, 4 hours. And in the period of 15 of April 31st of March 2025, almost 14,000 of consultations were conducted. We are making the best project of health for our people on each enterprise, and in 1 year you can see 37% of our employees, they haven't gone through the examination yet. So still we can say, with the most cases, that 30% those are kind of healthy people, 14% serious illnesses, 2% critical illnesses. Well, in our company, I think that if it's true for us, it's true for most Ukrainians, because it's approximately true that 51% of people have problems with the system, like with their blood system, and 20% have respiratory problems. Just in order to understand, like in our company, there are 36,000 people. The next stream is a program about physical safety. It is called Safety Matters. What's that about? It's about transformation of thinking and culture of everyone in our company, starting from the blue collars to top management. We do understand for a long time already that the aim cannot be achieved at the cost of human health and safety. We believe that zero traumatism at the enterprise is possible. zero traumas and death cases should not be allowed. So all our programs are aiming at eliminating the traumatic accidents and cases of death at the manufacturing. And in order to act fast, we need to do something. We have to be focused. We have to do only the things that are useful. And we should not do some things that are distracting us from the result. Therefore, we've identified 10 profiles of dangers that might lead to death. These are the categories where, with the experience of our activity in MHB, we and our partners had some traumatic cases that were repeated of different servitudes, starting from blocking the energy sources and working at height and using some loaders. On all these profiles of dangers, we are making and reviewing the plans of management, we are analyzing risks, we are conducting critical controls. Every day, on all the levels of communication, we are announcing, we are mentioning that to our colleagues. What can you do always, and what do you have to do always, and what you should never do. For example, like always come and work sober and healthy. Always work only with the permission and with the use of individual protection means. Never be in the zones of work of the equipment that is self-managing and never take off the protective equipment. And the function of, the labor protection, it's not autonomous. This is integrated into the corporate system of management, and it has a lot of impact on all the managerial decisions. So, for example, when we are making a project of some new production or something like that. So our specialists, they are working together with the process engineers. They are detecting risks on the stage of design. When we are choosing the new equipment, we are not only focusing on how efficient it is, but we are assessing the safety elements, vibration, noise, ergonomics. And in order to support the system, sustainable system of constant improving, we have a system, OKR system. And the efforts of regional teams there and main business and top management are combined there with one aim, one goal, to avoid production traumatic cases and death cases. So this allows us to adopt safety, like safe solutions. I will boast about our achievements. At the beginning of this year, we were certified in ISO 4501. That's about the framework. Yeah, we have shown you the tools that we have, and this document confirms full compliance and efficiency of our tools. Yeah, that it is compliant with international. Yeah, I will ask you to be brief. Yeah, first in Ukraine, certified with transfer safety standard. Yeah, I get it. Sorry. Yeah, of course we have sustainable practices because we are conducting the trainings on civil safety, on fire safety, medical aid, and we are standardizing our jobs on careful manufacturing and housekeeping and everything. We've started educational project, agrarian school, where young specialists are studying agrarian equipment, agrarian technologies. We are with a view of safe performance of work. So all of that is done by these young, smiling people. You won't believe us, but we also have some jobs. And in our team, we have a veteran. Mikhailo is working with us. He is with trauma, young person, and that was, he's super motivated. He's working at the enterprise with a lot of challenges. And when I am calling him and I am saying, Misha, I know it is hard, but just tell me what kind of support do you need? He says, everything is great. Everything's going to be okay. So he is moving so good. I would like to encourage all the employers, please integrate the kind of labor care, not as some global function, but as corporate philosophy. And it is care. It's not benefit. It's not just to put a check mark in some kind of journal, but it's our possibility to be flexible and effective during these hard times, because healthy and protected people is the basement of Ukraine. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to add the funny fact. Do you know who has the highest traumatic cases at jobs? Do you have any guesses, like young or experienced? Right. Yeah, you know the statistics. Sure. You conducted the research. Biggest traumatization is among the experienced, because when the person is new, he's afraid to violate the rules. When he is experienced, he says like, I can do that faster. Like, whoops, and the person's gone. So that's the interesting fact. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's incredibly important, and that is your advantage in comparison with other employers in order to cover the vacancies. So World Bank. World Bank is doing a lot in Ukraine and projects to support employment in Ukraine. So you heard a lot of things today. Your opinion, yeah, from what you're doing, what we are doing, do we have the future?
I apologize, I have to speak in English. I'm like a dog in Ukrainian. I can understand, but I cannot speak back. I heard a lot of things, and I want to highlight the missing gap. We all agree that human capital is extremely important. Each person now in Ukraine is the weight of gold or more. And then we have the reality. From the first presentation, we saw productivity, participation is at the lowest level in comparison to most countries in Europe. There is a gap between what we want and the reality, huge gap. And I want to talk about that gap. We also know the solutions. We have plenty of imagination, plenty of expertise. We know what needs to be done. We know the problem, but there's a black box in between. How do you remove this gap? At the World Bank, we are supporting the Ukrainian government. We want to think in terms of systems rather than programs. And if you look at the systems today, they are not exactly aligned with the aspiration of making human capital the most important thing. I mean, from small examples, Alona, you mentioned hazing of women at workplace. That doesn't speak well to treating human capital with the due respect that it deserves. If you look at, for example, integrated services, how many offices does a person with disability or a veteran need to visit to obtain all the necessary documentation in order to get the supporting services? It doesn't say that this is that the system currently is designed to protect and promote human capital. So the danger with going with the programs is that we are seeing proliferation of programs, because thanks to the positive side, which is imagination of Ukrainians and proactivity and their hard work, but sometimes it has a negative side. You have fragmented programs, a lot of initiatives, like a spinning wheel on a car that is stuck in snow. We are not seeing progress on human capital, because we need systems in place. The tax policy, is it aligned to promoting jobs? Not sure. Pension system, is it encouraging work? Could be doing better. Welfare system, is it paying not to work? It's a good question. And so you can keep going on like that. Skilling, everyone talks about expectation that skilling will somehow come from somewhere. Most skilling in other countries happens at workplaces. People get trained by the companies. That's where they get the best kind of education. And, you know, the question is, why would a private sector company train if they know that there is a good chance that this worker that they invested in is going to be either mobilized or will be poached by another company, or they're not going to invest in their human capital. One more example why there is a gap between aspiration and what is the reality. So the system should be in place so that it actually supports the private sector, increases the role of private sector in skilling. And in this case, we need to think less in terms of what government can do in providing programs, but rather what government can essentially facilitate and create the enabling environment. For example, through state employment services, through provision of not even the training directly, but making sure that, you know, the tax code is aligned with rewarding training, the subsidies are provided for training at workplace, because there is a failure. Essentially, the government should cover part of the training provided by private company, because there is a public good from more trained people in the economy. So that's the kind of enabling environment. In the ideal case, for example, we should have one-stop shop window for people with needs, whether they're veterans or IDPs or people with disabilities, so that they get assessed in terms of what is their limitation and also what can they do, and also given the support in a single space. That doesn't exist because the fundamental issue in Ukraine is that there is a lot of miscoordination. Every institute or institution thinks in terms of their own mandate. It's not my problem. I'm responsible for employment services, I'll do that. I'm responsible for social protection, I'll do that. I'm responsible for health, I'll do that. So the sum of parts doesn't add up. Money is being spent. If you look at the total budget spent on social protection, it's way north of 12%, or who knows, maybe even 15% of GDP. 15% of GDP. After defense, social protection is the biggest piece of expenditure. What are we getting for it? You should be asking. I'm not blaming the ministries. The point is that smart people in this room, smart people in the country, the ministries by themselves are also very smart, but the way everything is organized, collectively, it doesn't act as a smart entity. So that's what we want to invest in. As a World Bank, we want to invest in the kind of systems that, whether it is data interoperability, whether it's the business processes or it's the management, so that, for example, Ministry of Health and Education talk to each other and say, you know what, it doesn't matter who gets credit. We're going to work on this together, or with Ministry of Social Protection. Disability is the best example for that. You want all these ministries to create one system. Who does their medical assessment? Should be done by Ministry of Health. And they should be happy to share all the data with the Ministry of Social Policy, so the Ministry of Social Policy can assess what benefits are needed, and then should be happy to send that data to Ministry of Economy and help Ministry of Economy to figure out what employment services are needed. Everyone should be happy to collaborate. We are hoping with our help we can create such a system, right? But the idea would be that each entity each institution should be willing to do teamwork. That is currently not yet there, but it's coming. And I hope we can collectively work towards that and have the private sector essentially empowered, because there is nothing will be solved if you don't have very high participation from the private sector. Not because they don't want to do it, they want to do it, but there are barriers to their participation and there is not enough support and facilitation for the private sector. So if the government can rethink its model going forward, then we will be able to align better the aspiration and the reality we currently face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Насправді я дуже рада, знаєте, чому?
Actually, I'm so happy to hear, you know what, because many times as business, we've raised our questions to some ministries and each person is doing something of their own. And it is not kind of intersected with the things that we are doing. But then we are coming back to the fact that the whole system is not functioning, but a lot of money is spent on some issues that are unclear how to solve them. I had one discussion with one deputy minister once. He says, like, we are solving the problem like this. And I'm saying, is there such a problem? He says, like, no, we can't solve existing problems. So we are solving the problems that we can solve. So thank you very much, World Bank, because you are saying that there should be the unified system which is reacting quickly to challenges, and that it should be teamwork of all the ministries and all the institutions. And that is why we have the unified vision of development of the employment service, that in a way that how we can build all this system. Thank you very much for your support. I will ask you not to leave because I promised you to have the third presentation. We know that 3 is 3, it's better than 2. So Eugenia is with us as far as I understand on the screen. Eugenia, hello Eugenia, are you with us? Yeah, I can see you, wonderful. So now it's your turn. Yeah, just do the presentation at the end. Why do we have this burnout or we don't have the burnout? Do we understand this word at all in here? So go ahead.
Добрий день, друзі, колеги, рада бути сьогодні з вами і трохи онлайн. Сьогодні презентуватиму репорт про ситуацію вигорання українців в період Великої війни. Ми проводили це дослідження наприкінці травня 2025, результати свіжі.
So these are fresh results, you know.
Як тут листати, секунду. Ага. Два слова про Градус. Багато з вас точно знають нашу компанію. Градус – це дослідницька агенція повного циклу. Ми робимо кількісно, кабінетні і лонгітюдні дослідження на основі власних технологій мобільного застосунку і веб-платформи. Маємо великих замовників і широке глобальне паблісіті. Представлені в багатьох європейських країнах вже власними панелями. Що ми дослідили щодо вигорання? Ми опитали 1000 респондентів 8 травня 2025 року. Це чоловіки і жінки віком 18-60, які проживають в містах більше 50 тисяч населення. Формат роботи респондентів – це важливо, бо це впливає на результати
results and indicators that I will show you further on. Most of them are working full day, 70%, and a bit more than half are working in the offices, like all the time.
Дотримуються офісного формату роботи трохи частіше за чоловіків, зрозуміло зараз причин. Як українці почуваються? Винесла в заголовок пізнаваний мем «I'm fine», бо ми трохи зараз всі в такому стані «I'm fine». Проте, якщо дивитися на рівень суб'єктивного стресу від травня 2020, фактично ви його міряєте, ми бачимо, наскільки українці заглиблюються чи лишаються живуть в стані постійного супервисокого стресу. Для порівняння рівень суб'єктивного стресу в європейських країнах знаходиться близько 70%. Тобто, звісно, чи впливає такий перманентний постійний стрес на самопочуття фізичне і ментальне здоров'я? Відповідь так, впливає і дуже сильно. Двоє з трьох чоловіків і 4 з 5 жінок відчувають себе вигорілими. Що таке вигорання? Це відчуття, що немає сил вставати зранку, робити свої щоденні справи. І хочеться лежати, спати, читати і робити нічого. І ми бачимо, що жінки в цілому більш тяжіють до таких станів вигорання і високого стресу. Жінки більш емоційні. Ми спостерігаємо цю відмінність і специфіку від початку виміру цього показника. Основні причини стресу на роботі – це надмірне навантаження і невизначеність у компанії. Може бути, можливо, тут грає також впливає фактор невизначеність у житті в цілому. Причому це надмірне навантаження. Це навантаження, яке зараз сприймається надмірним до війни, сприймалося плюс-мінус нормальним у людей. Сідає батарейка. Близькі люди, як опори і ресурс. Сім'я, діти і близькі – це те, до чого люди приходять, звертаються, аби відпочити і відпустити внутрішню напругу. Це реально зараз виходить на перший план такі емпатичні, теплі контакти. Очікування від колективу на роботі. Ми зараз робимо багато досліджень HR чи Human Capital для великих роботодавців для того, щоб зрозуміти, а які як зробити так, щоб люди не звільнялися, бо вигорівша людина дуже підійде до етапу звільнення. Ми бачимо, що в принципі більшість людей, і чоловіків, і жінок відчувають свою цінність у колективі, і це велика заслуга самих роботодавців акцентувати цінність співробітника на своїй позиції, на своєму місці. Попри відносно безпеку, в колективі дуже велика кількість людей замислюється про звільнення. Тобто це не сформований намір, завтра я звільняюсь, але думки про те, що надто важко, надто стресово, надто компанії, звісно, на першому місці фінансове заохочення. Проте ми бачимо, що робоче навантаження та графік зручний і більше відпустка, і більше вихідних, тобто більше доступ до особистого часу, можливості передихнути і трохи знайти знову землю під ногами. Дуже важливо для співробітників також. Які очікування від роботодавця? Що мотивує до співпраці? Що мотивує обирати саме цю компанію як роботодавця, а не іншу? Гідна винагорода – це зрозуміло на другому місці. Це позитивне середовище, тобто середовище, де тебе не будуть емоційно напружувати чи вимагати додаткового емоційного ресурсу. На другому місці можливості для кар'єрного росту, розвитку і можливості для професійного зростання. Найбажаніша ініціатива для розвитку компанії. На першому місці ми бачимо, що для людей це від часів ковіду ще залишилося, але зараз це теж суперактуальна гнучкість місця та графіку роботи. Люди звикли працювати віддалено і воліють зберігати таку опцію. Чим молодший вік, тим більше бажання кар'єрного зростати. Це природне, зрозуміло, молоді люди, які тільки починають свою кар'єру, жадають швидкого кар'єрного зростання і професійного розвитку. Тоді як старші покоління вже досягли своїх позицій. Бар'єри для молоді, для кар'єрного зростання, які вони бачать перед собою. Для мене це дуже цікавий слайд, бо
a very interesting slide for me personally. 23% of people
ті, хто наймали на роботу представників покоління бачили цю рису доволі ярко. Відсутність впевненості у собі і челенджі, виклики поєднання кар'єрного росту та сімейних обов'язків теж доволі високі. Сприйняття місця роботи, що важливо в роботодавці, винагорода, що ми повертаємось до неї, але і баланс між роботою та особистим життям. Ми пам'ятаємо, що особисте життя, родина, друзі – це той ресурс, який зараз підтримує ментальне здоров'я і допомагає справлятися зі стресом дуже багатьом людям. Оцінка ймовірності порадити компанії як хороше місце для роботи, так званий ENPS. Дуже багато роботодавців вимірюють, це базовий показник, базовий KPI для розуміння здоров'я бренду компанії, сили бренду компанії. Ми бачимо, що загальний ENPS мінус 19 від'ємний, і це доволі погана новина для українського ринку праці. Саме через це зараз багато українських компаній, українських роботодавців приділяють стільки уваги побудові бренду роботодавця. І NPS суттєво знижується з віком. Ми бачимо, що чим старша людина, тим менше вона задоволена своїм місцем роботи і компанією, на яку вона працює. Також NPS більш негативний серед співробітників, які працюють неповний робочий день, тож наша рекомендація роботодавцям була виводити, знаходити способи зайнятості для цієї категорії, для того, щоб більше їх залучати до компанії, до комунікації з іншими співробітниками. Найбільш позитивний NPS від міжнародних компаній і у керівників на посадах, там, де є підлеглі люди. Відповідно, це теж про практики побудови комфортного місця роботи і розвитку людей всередині компанії. Інтеграція різних поколінь, оскільки представникам різних поколінь легко чи важко інтегруватися на новому місці роботи. Ми бачимо, що молодь вважає, що я перепрошую, це не молодь, всі респонденти вважають, що молоді доволі важко інтегруватися в поточну організацію. 40% вважають, що там погано, і інтеграція літніх людей
And also they believe about the same number, believes that it's hard to integrate people over the age of 50. However, we see that young people themselves believe their integration to be more or less okay. And so do people of older age categories. They see fewer barriers than people of other ages. What can be done by the employer to become more attractive? We see three big factors, that is flexible hours, support of individual career paths, creating a positive work environment. I will say that this group actually has a lot of demand for mentorship, for assistance, career coaching, various trainings, and support with personal professional development. In addition, we looked at individual stress responses and developed 5 basic types of burnout among Ukrainian employees. As for individual responses, we do see that the biggest characteristics of burnout is constantly checking the news. In another study, we actually heard that peace is when we wake up in the morning and not check the news. I really miss when I didn't check the news all the time. People often check social media, they have issues with their sleep, and they have eating disorders. Also, emotional burnout can also be part of the diagnosis. There are 5 main segments of burnout in terms of engagement in work processes. We see that there is only one group with a happy dog. They are engaged and inspired. And this is about 1/5 of all respondents. Everyone else is at a certain level of burnout. The lowest likelihood of stress is also among those who are stable but careless. Those who balance between inspiration and burnout have medium level of stress, minimum level of engagement, and there is also a group of those who are exhausted and demotivated. These are people who are very close to dismissal.
За бажанням звільнитися, ми бачимо доволі логічну картину, хронічно перенавантажені лідують бажання звільнитися, виснажені, демотивовані і бути наступними, балансуючи і стабільні, але байдужі, приблизно половина задумується, що дозвільнено, і лише 18% залучених розглядають таку опцію.
In contrast, only 18% of those who are engaged and inspired who consider this option. And here we understand that for each of these groups, we need their own individual approaches of how we can help people.
В переважній більшості випадків людина не може самостійно ідентифікувати вигорання, принаймні на ранніх етапах. Це задача роботодавця допомогти ідентифікувати і надати саме ці інструменти, які у відповідності до рівня вигорання допоможуть людині відновитися і функціонувати далі. Ми бачимо, що сегменти вигорання напряму впливають на ІНПС, найбільш негативними
directly correlate with ENPS. Obviously, people who are engaged and inspired have a high overall NPS in contrast to those who are chronically overloaded. As for how the psychological climate you also see that the results are significantly different. The lower the burnout, the better people respond to general tools of supporting psychological climate in the teams. However, at high stages of burnout, people they pay almost no attention to this, so we need to keep that in mind. I'm sorry, I will speed you up because we are yeah, we are running out of time, but I'm done actually. I can just give the audience time to take a picture of the slide, because the main message is that we need different tools for supporting different categories to bring them back to active work and normal life. Thank you very much, colleagues. This QR code is a link to our report. Yeah, I have two news items for you both. Good, you know this picture, how a person is asked, are you resilient? The person responds, I'm from Ukraine. So Evgeny actually showed that we are more resilient than the European Union. So congratulations, we are all very resilient. That is one thing. And the other thing is that this slide before the last one, we are also motivated, you know, because you are all here. You are inspired. We recommend to watch everyone else on YouTube. So thank you all very much. We all have almost a full room. So it means that the subject is interesting. I'm not letting speakers go again because the photographer is ready. But I will also ask you to join our picture. Please do take a picture with us. Please do. Am I doing things right? Everyone agrees with me, right? Okay, let's take a picture. Thank you, everyone. They said that